worked with. So I'm going to let, in reaching the interview process, we interviewed a number of different companies, and it was myself, the 5 community volunteers, as well as trustees, including Ed Finneran and Michelle Harrington were both very involved in that process. It was a unanimous vote to hire the company. And I'm excited that we're at a moment here for St. Paul's that we have a chance to get to a solution for the community. So I'm going to turn it over. We had the kickoff meeting, and Keith, who's on the line, will tell you a little bit about that. I think he has some slides to share. And he'll explain to you a little bit more about the process ahead of us. And I'll just share one thing. As we were talking, it is kind of a unique challenge we have ahead of us with this very large historic building. So one thing that we discussed extensively was, is there going to come a point in this process where we may want to keep options open as far as architectural competitions? I know Michelle Harrington and I met with a resident who had an idea of, having an architectural competition at a school where to stimulate different ideas, creative ideas. But in order to even do that or go out to architects, you need to have a program, which is what Branstetter can help us with. And you need to have a budget and an understanding of what generally would be, what direction, we think the community would support. So thank you, Keith, for joining us. If you want to introduce yourself, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
You may have to unmute. We don't hear you yet. It might be on our end. We're working on that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you now. Great,
okay.
Thank you.
Great. Could you please unmute John as well? If he's there.
Not that John.
John Bucher.
That's right there.
B-U-C-H-E-R?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm Keith Rodenhauser, and I am the project manager with Branstetter Carroll, and I have John Bucher with me as well. He's a planner. Unfortunately, our vice president, who's been with us many of the other meetings, Pat Hoagland, is currently in England and is unavailable. But I'm going to just give a quick summary of the process so far and what we're doing for the village. So a little bit about who we are. We are a firm of architects, engineers, planners, and landscape architects. We have 5 offices, over 80 staff, and the division that I work in is called Recreation Planning and Landscape Architecture, RPLA. And my team personally, we focus on Parks and Recreation Master System planning. And we've done over 100 plans of that type. One thing to note is that we are not local. We have no ties to the area. That's one of the reasons I think we were selected. And our main interest here is to find a successful Parks and Recreation plan for the village that includes a plan for St. Paul's that is based on community consensus that ultimately can be implemented and will pass a bond referendum and become a reality. Some of the project goals are to identify the recreation, cultural arts, and park needs of the community, to provide the village with data-driven and community-based recommendations, find out what is needed in the community and make sure we can back that up with data. Identify potential uses for St. Paul's main building. There have been a lot of studies done in the past, and we are looking at those and seeing how those fit into what we hear through this process as well. And then identify what improvements and also what the community is willing to support. Ultimately, we want any referendum you have and this plan overall to be successful. The process can simply be broken down into 4 phases. I'll talk about each of these real briefly. Is evaluate, where we look at the community and what you have, and then engage where we talk to the community, which is by far the most important. We come up with a vision for what we want to see in the future and ultimately recommendations for how to make that happen. Looking at that first evaluate phase, we're going to do an inventory and assessment of everything that you have, all the parks and facilities and programs. We've already been to most of the parks, but we need to do a detailed assessment of what you have and the condition that it's in and what improvements might be needed. We're going to look at community and population trends. The community hasn't done a process like this that is comprehensive for the whole recreation and park system in at least 11 or 12 years. We'll do some benchmarking against other agents to see how you compare, look at the number of facilities you have and how they're laid out. Also do some mapping to see where they're located compared to where people live. We're going to look at the previous studies, all the previous studies for St. Paul's. Also look at some case studies of similar reuses for recreation of older buildings. So the engage phase, this is where we came up last week to talk to the public and get this kicked off. We're starting with a 2-phase approach for our survey process. Right now, we have a 5-page survey that is getting ready to go out, but there's already a shorter version online that people can fill out. It's available now. We were promoting it at the open house last week. There will be a second survey specific to St. Paul's coming up soon. And we also have open houses like we had last week and other community events that we will be attending to talk to users while they're actually attending programs and events. A little bit more about the statistically valid random sample survey overall. That first one, it's the 5-page survey that's getting ready to go out. It will be sent to 2,000 households, and a shorter version is available for everyone else who does not receive that survey. It'll ask about what parks and facilities people use, what they think of them, what their facility and program needs are for the future. The survey company, ETC Institute, will administer the survey, and they will follow up with those 2,000 households by text message, postcards, even a second mailing to make sure that they get the minimum of 400 surveys to reach a margin of error of 4.9% at the 95% confidence level. That's what is in their contract. If necessary, they will weigh the data as needed if the results do not match some demographic groups, which is the reason we're asking in the survey some of the demographic background of the people completing it. And then that second survey that is specific to St. Paul's will go to every household in Garden City. And ETC will administer both of those surveys in the same method. There's also an opportunity to complete it online. So you don't have to mail it back. You can choose to go on the website, fill it out. A brief update on what we have done so far. We had 11 stakeholder groups over 2 days last week. About 50 people attended those meetings to talk to us, told us a lot of history of St. Paul's as well as Garden City as a whole. We note that there's a lot of passion in the community for St. Paul's. There's a lot of different opinions. Not everybody agrees, but everybody agrees that they're passionate. At the open house, we had great attendance. There were over 140 people that came to that meeting. And that's when we kicked off that online and handout survey. So far, that should be 177 surveys have been completed. 63 were actually at the open house, and then another 114 online. And that survey will stay active until we get the results of that first recreation survey. Now we need the Recreation and Parks Department to start promoting that survey, and I've been in contact with them, and they're going to be doing so shortly. So it should be on the website, should be through social media, as well as their email contacts. That envision phase, once we have the results of these first two phases, we will work with the steering committee and the board of trustees and our working group to come up with a vision, mission, goals for the future of recreation and parks, but also how St. Paul's fits into that. And this will ultimately guide us into our recommendations in the next step. And that plan phase is where we'll come up with the document itself with an action plan for how to make this a reality with a report. And that implementation will include ultimately, hopefully, voter-approved funding to make St. Paul's part of the recreation system. Ultimately, we hope to have community consensus to create a plan that will be funded and implemented. Through our previous experience, we found that a comprehensive system-wide approach leads to successful bond resolutions as well as overall implementation of the plan, because when you hear from the community and you respond to their needs, you tend to get strong support from that community. I have some examples here of referenda that have passed after we completed a master planning process in several communities. And in some cases, these were the first bonds ever passed for those communities. Most of these bonds pass. And in fact, in Ohio, we see 85% pass, especially after a process to identify what the community is looking for. This project schedule is based on our original scope services of about a year. It could vary somewhat, but hopefully we'll be able to keep close to this schedule. And that's it for my quick summary of our process so far.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming to share some of those details with the group.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Keith.
Right. So at this point, we're going to go on to comments by the department heads. I'll begin with Mr. Baroni.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees.
Oh, no, it was on. Okay.
DPW will be covering 3 items on the agenda this evening. I'd like to direct your attention under item 1C. Item 1C is a request to transfer $32,070.37 from contingent to repair a vac truck that is utilized daily for cleaning our catch basins and for emergency response during heavy rainfalls. The blower unit failed and needed to be replaced. Okay, sorry about that. Item 1D, E and F is a request to transfer $2,530.04 to the various accounts as listed in each item to purchase an ice maker at the DPW yard. The current ice maker is broken and is not repairable. The ice maker is used by various village departments, so workers who work outside during the hot summer months can keep their drinks cold. I'd like to direct your attention on the Public Works. Item number 14 is a request to approve rates submitted by Tri-State for drug and alcohol testing. This will be used on an as-needed basis. Item number 15 is a request to approve rates for Pace Analytical Services to provide village drinking and groundwater testing as required by the Nassau County and New York State Health Departments. Although not a agenda item, I'd like to request permission from the mayor to introduce Mr. Stan Carey from the Water and Sewer Department to go over the water quality annual report.
Great. Thank you. And Mr. Carey, thank you for attending the EAB meeting last night and again for speaking on this important topic of water.
You're welcome. Good evening, Mayor and trustees and residents. Tonight, I'd like to just briefly introduce the 2023 Annual Drinking Water Quality Report. It covers calendar year for 2023. We are mandated to mail this to every resident and business within the village every year by the State Health Department and the US EPA. In 2023, the Village Water Department pumped 1.8 billion gallons of water to serve the residents' needs here in the village. for both home domestic use and for fire protection. I can report that we met all drinking water standards. We had no violations in 2023, and in most cases, our water exceeds the drinking water standards. And what I mean by that is they test it down to non-detect, and all the results for the new treatment systems that we put in place are operating perfectly as planned. There were some bumps in the road, but we worked all that out, and our sample results are provided in this report. Some of our capital projects are in here. I did bring some extras. I left them on the table, but all residents should have received them in the mail. If you have any questions, my phone number is in here. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you don't have them tonight and you haven't had a chance to read it yet.
Thank you.
Thank you
Any
very much.
questions?
Thank you.
Appreciate that. And thank you for all the work you're doing with the water department.
If there's any questions on the agenda items I cover, I'd be happy to answer also.
Nothing. It's good.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carey and Mr. Barone. Ms. Wu?
Good evening, Mayor, trustees, everyone in attendance tonight. Item number 1A under the Finance Department, this is a request to transfer $40,000 within the Water Department to fund additional electricity costs that are coming in higher than anticipated. And this is a result of the new AOP systems being up and running, which is using more electricity than anticipated. Item 1B is a request to transfer $1,200 to the insurance reserve liability premium within the insurance reserve workers' comp insurance line. We need this additional funding to cover an additional vehicle that was added to the insurance policy within this fiscal year. Item number 2 is a request for the board to approve a bond resolution for the pool water slide. As you recall, this was one of the capital projects that was presented for the 24-25 fiscal year. So this is the request to get the bond authorization going so that we can get this project started as soon as possible in the new fiscal year. Item number 3 includes various professional services. This is a request to renew each of these professional services. They are existing vendors with the village, and we're just requesting that we extend the services for the upcoming fiscal year. I also would like to provide a little bit of good news. This week, we were notified by FEMA that our request to provide some additional funding was approved, and we should be receiving a check within the next couple of weeks. This is regarding Tropical Storm Isaias. So this storm occurred in 2021. The village, we worked very hard to receive reimbursement, federal disaster recovery funds from FEMA for all the storm, all the damage that the storm caused. Most of this damage was related to debris removal. We also had sidewalk damage. And as you recall, we also had damage to the St. Paul's roof, for which we also received reimbursement for that cost. In total, we incurred $1,855,000 in damages. We worked with FEMA to receive reimbursement. As you know, FEMA reimburses about 75% of the cost. However, because this storm was very prevalent, they increased that to 90% reimbursement. And then we also received 10%, the final 10% reimbursement from New York State. So in total, the village received full reimbursement of the damages caused by this storm. The finance department worked very diligently with FEMA to provide all the documentation that was needed. There were various meetings. And as a result, they also allowed the village to submit the hours worked by village staff for submitting for these reimbursements over the last 3 years. And so we submitted a request for reimbursement back in January of 2023. So here we are a year and a half later, we were notified that they finally approved our reimbursement in the amount of $35,044.45. So that's an additional amount that we'll be receiving reimbursement for. And I just want to thank our senior auditor, Kevin Mitchell, who's been working with FEMA since the beginning of this storm back in 2021 throughout all these years to ensure that all the documentation was provided, all the forms were properly filled out, meeting with FEMA representatives, and also submitting for this additional reimbursement. So a big kudos to him. This is, great news that we're getting this additional funds. So thank you, Kevin. And that's my update.
The final numbers from FEMA or what? I was trying to follow you. 1.8 million altogether?
The total cost of the damages incurred by
Was
FEMA
what
was
again?
$1,855,000.
Okay, and what we got reimbursed by FEMA was,
Between FEMA, federal government and New York State was 100% of those costs were reimbursed.
excellent.
And
Okay.
now we got notified, we got reimbursed for the management costs, what they're calling, time spent by village staff.
excellent.
Thanks for your work on that.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
Just a follow-up to that, and just because I don't, not familiar with this. When we get reimbursed for those costs, do those dollars go back to the same budget line or do they go into the general fund?
So typically, the expenses incurred for these these disasters, these storms, the funding comes out of surplus because,
does,
you know
okay.
what I'm saying? So we take funding and the village is very fortunate to have very ample surplus. So these aren't budgeted dollars.
Mhm.
They come out of surplus. So when we receive the reimbursement, we replenish our surplus with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Irene, I got one quick question for you.
Sure.
With all that great news, it's nice to get that news. When do you think, or do you have any idea of when we can get that few dollars?
Oh, the $35,000?
No, the entire from FEMA and from the state. When?
Oh, we received that already. We
You have received
received the full amounts, yes,
Oh, I
because the
didn't realize
storm
that, sorry.
happened in 2021. So over the last 3 years, we've been working with them,
Great.
and we've been incrementally getting all the funding. So we've completely received all the funding. The
Terrific.
last piece that was missing was this management cost, which now they're, after we receive that, we can close out this project. So
Terrific, thank you. That's great news.
you're welcome.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wu.
You're welcome.
Mr. Giovanelli.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees. The Building Department does have one item on the agenda this evening. Can I bring your attention to item number 12, Professional Services Agreement for Plan Review Services for Richard Barbieri. The board authorization is requested to engage services for Richard Barbieri to provide plan review services and inspections at the rate of $95 per hour as per an on-needed basis. Terms are on the contract from June 1st, 2024 to May 31st, 2025. This will be coming out of the operating budget. I do have updated, Mayor, on the work performance for the building department for the month of April. The building department performed 220 building inspections, issued 109 building permits, addressed 41 complaints, and we've taken in 171 in revenue. That's all I have this evening. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions the board may have. Sir. And also that contract was reviewed by council. Thank you.
Edgemere Firehouse.
Yes, Deputy Mayor Chester, I have spoken with them occasionally, 2 to 3 times a week. I spoke with them this afternoon. The progress is progressing. We have a not scheduled meeting, but there is a meeting at the end of next week on their updated plans and paperwork, which will probably bring this project as far as design between the architect, engineer, and structural designers to about 80%. 80%. So we have been discussing with the chief as far as a wish list and needs and stuff like that. So we're going to be discussing that at the meeting next week, and hopefully we can push this thing forward.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Mr. Giovanelli. Mr. Blake.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you so much. Board and residents, Recreation has one item on the agenda this evening. That is number 13, service agreement with Steve Dassa Entertainment. Authorization is requested to engage Steve Dassa Entertainment, Delray Beach, Florida, to provide musical entertainment performers for the village. This is the gentleman that gets us the bands that we use for our gazebo concerts. We will receive, Steve will receive 10% of the compensation paid to each performer. Cost will not exceed $20,000, and we are about $700 under that amount this year. We have 6 wonderful acts lined up, and Village Council has approved this agreement as to form. Beside that, just 2 quick items. One is the pool registration is open, and with the warm weather, we're starting to see some increased numbers. So don't be late. Get your application in because it is the place to be. I got to tell you that. And the mayor did ask me to briefly go over a little bit of the survey, which is going out to all the residents. And I guess I would liken this to when I go to start a road trip and I want to go to Los Angeles. And before I can start that road trip, I have to put into my little Waze or Google Maps where I am so that I can tell where I'm going. And that's kind of what we're doing with this survey. The Recreation Department, as Keith had indicated, has not had an overachieving survey done in about 12 years. And unfortunately, that survey was looked at and used for a couple of years, and then like so many surveys and master plans, it ended up in a desk drawer. So it is time for the department to be evaluated by a critical eye from outside. And it is time to understand what we do, how we do it, and what we're going to be asked to do down the future. There are changing trends in recreation every day. And this survey is designed to capture any emerging trends that may be out there. The survey has been worked on by the steering committee quite a bit, and we've had good input from our trustees, from the steering committee, and from our residents who turned out at that open house and opened some eyes because there were things that were asked for that we had kind of thought might not belong on the survey. And sure enough, a couple of people asked for things that the steering committee and myself had kind of said, well, I don't know about that in Garden City. But there they were up on the board for everybody to see. So we went back to Brandstetter and we reviewed the survey and we did a little editing. And the survey that we have now looks to be an extremely comprehensive one. It has simplicity in the format. It should take people about 10 minutes to fill it out. And knowing the way this village is engaged with our department, I mentioned last week the amazing open rate that we have on our constant contact. I have no doubt that they will get their 400 surveys and then some. The company that is doing the surveying, ETC, is one of the better survey companies in the country. And the mayor referred to the firms that we interviewed before choosing Brandstetter Carroll, and the majority of them all were using this firm for their survey work. So they are a well-acknowledged expert in the field. And we feel that the survey is at a good point. We are looking forward to seeing everybody's responses to it. And I think I covered about all I should, Mayor, because nobody wants to hear me talk all night.
Just one thing, actually, to clarify, the steering committee is the group that's been working and meeting with Brandstetter Carroll. They wanted a group of about 12 people so that it wasn't unwieldy, that we could have discussions with them and give the feedback. So on the steering committee, just to update anyone on Zoom, I had my microphone off. What is the steering committee? So the steering committee is something we have to work with Brandstetter Carroll, and it allows us to have, manageable meetings. They asked for about 12 people. They gave some guidance. We have obviously Paul Blake, who is our an important resource and voice in this process. We also have Ralph Swazi. I am on it. Michelle Harrington and Ed Finneran are both on it. They were, but those two were both on the prior St. Paul's committee, which I thought was important for that continuity. And we have Judy Courtney on it as well. And as I have discussed with the trustees, as we go forward and we're at different stages, right now we're at the survey stage. And we are getting the 4 trustees who are not on it are being given plenty of opportunities for feedback, and we're listening to all of their feedback. As we move to other stages for building, I've already spoken to Vinny, like we are going to, he'll be on the steering committee, obviously, when we're talking more building. And we also have discussed expanding the committee as we get into different stages. It's a long process, as you can all imagine, and complicated, and there will be some fluidity in the steering committee. But when Paul Blake mentions the steering committee, that's the group that's been meeting. And I do think your story there really highlighted for a lot of us the importance of listening to these experts that we have hired. And there's a reason they're the experts. It's good for us to give our input, but they put something in there. I thought it was very interesting. They do this all over the country. They have information on trends, on things that are working places, and they have had some, great ideas. And I think we'll continue to on things that we may not have thought of or might think, oh, that wouldn't fit here. And it actually could fit here. So thanks for that update. Any questions on recreation?
I just had one quick question, Ms. Mayor. Mr. Blake, how long have we been working with the DASSA organization?
Steve Dassa brought his first entertainers to the village during my first tenure here. So it goes back 25 or more years. He was a local young man, grew up in Levittown. He produces a lot of the concerts that you see for Town of Hempstead and Nassau County. He's doing a couple of big shows at Eisenhower Park. He does a lot of shows for Town of Hempstead at their local parks. And he always manages to find us good acts at reasonable prices. And we don't really have to do much. He brings the sound, he brings the lighting guys. It's one-stop shopping. It's very easy for us.
Thank you very much.
I'd also like to thank the recreation staff for being at our kickoff meeting. It was great having those friendly, familiar faces from recreation greeting residents who came. So thank you.
And Mayor, just a follow-up on the pool, switching topics a little bit. I know that we don't mail out the pool applications anymore. Could you tell us a little bit about the marketing plans for the next couple of weeks? Because since it was slow to begin with, now it's hot out. Hopefully we'll get more, but what's your plan for that?
Well, if you've been watching social media, we've been putting something on social media every couple of days on all of the platforms that we use. That would be Instagram, Facebook, X, whatever they call that now. And we do have it on our website. Applications are also available at all of our locations: Senior Center, Community Park, Recreation Office, and you'll see some surprises in the next couple of days. The staff has got some tricks up their sleeve, and they'll also be sending out a constant contact. Again, that'll get to about 4,500 residents in the village. So we're on it.
And they can be shared with the residents page and the Garden City Moms and Dads page, et cetera, right? Your updates?
Absolutely. Just remember that we will be checking everybody's residence when those forms come back in,
That's all right.
because there are people on those pages that don't live in Garden City.
All right, thank you. All
Thank you all.
right, Inspector Niesel.
Madam Mayor, Board. Inspector Niesel sitting in for Commissioner Jackson. He is away for a well-deserved few days with his family. Nothing on the agenda, but I did have a couple of items I wanted to just bring up. May is Police Week, leads into Memorial Day. Garden City Police was represented a couple of times in the last week. Excuse me. True Bell in Farmingdale, honoring a memorial service with the state police, and we were at Nassau County Police Department today. Same, acknowledging those who have died given the ultimate sacrifice. I also did want to mention Memorial Day. We did post the parade route and hours on our website today for those who might need that information. Also wanted to bring to your attention, and continuing on the Memorial Day, came to our attention that Garden City High School junior doing a Girl Scout project has prepared multiple banners on 7th Street. It's close to home for the police department as well. We're very grateful to acknowledge all of them, but also Major Kevin Riley, who is in fact working tonight, who served in Operation Enduring Freedom in 2008. He is a Purple Heart recipient. And so we appreciate what Kira has done for all of those persons, including Major Riley. I wanted to also bring to your attention that the Cricket World Cup is coming to Long Island, and the Garden City Hotel will be home to hosting a few countries. All the preparations and planning are moving along well. We don't anticipate any concerns or regarding traffic and routes. It's being finalized, but we did want to just bring to your attention that there is a possibility for some route disruption on the roads. We expect to mitigate it. We will have the state police with us and MTA PD. All the planning is being finalized. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge Father Joe D'Angelo. Maybe some of you know him. He's the Garden City Police chaplain who passed away relatively unexpected this week after a battle in the hospital. I've known him for 30 years. He has been a police chaplain all across the metro New York area. Literally thousands of police officers know Father Joe. And so we just wanted to honor his memory as well. If you have any questions.
Keep up the good work, filling in for Commissioner Jackson. How many people is expected in Nassau County with this? It's an enormous event, this World Cricket. Even the Irish are showing up to play some cricket.
Yes, sir, they
which
are.
is pretty funny. Any idea? Because it seems like there's going to be an enormous amount of people within a very short distance of Garden City and in Garden City for this big event.
Yeah, I think it's probably bigger than maybe most of us realized, but it's had our full attention for a long time now. All the proper notifications and accommodations are being made. If you haven't seen the stadium over at Eisenhower Park, it's pretty impressive, temporary facility, but it's very impressive. The Garden City Hotel is hosting, I believe, 4, possibly 5 countries for at some point during June 1st to June 12th. Those are the dates of competition. And some of the other teams are staying in New York City. As far as any particular day, there's only one game a day, which will assist, of course, in planning. It starts at 10:30. The extent of the planning is deep. Everything they could possibly plan for, we believe we've accounted for. As far as the numbers, the stadium holds 35,000. There's going to be a lockdown in the area. We just don't anticipate their ability to have much more than that. The routes in and out have been decided. The route planning has been decided. State police, all the roads, the county, everybody is acting in just a very productive manner to make sure that the event is held in a safe and enjoyable manner.
Great. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, so thank you. And thank you for recognizing Chaplain D'Angelo. It's a tremendous loss for the fire department and the community. Chief Taunton.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees, village residents. The fire department has 3 items on the agenda this evening. I ask you to refer to number 9. This is professional services contract. This is going to be board authorizations requested to engage Long Island Fire Technology. They provide commercial building inspection services for the fire department. This would be from June 1st, 2024 to May 31st, 2025 at the amount not to exceed $50,000. Village Council has approved this contract, and this is already included in our operational budget. Number 10 is the professional services contract for the computer software Alpine Software Corporation. Board authorization is requested to engage Alpine Software. This system controls all the fire department's functions from attendance to call tracking, and including the NFIRS, National Fire Reporting System. This is from June 1st, 2024 to May 31st, 2025 at a cost of $18,959.75. Village Council has approved this contract as well, and this is a part of the 24-25 operating budget. Number 11, Fire Department, board authorization is requested for transfer of $5,000 to the fire department. This is to increase the gym memberships. Currently, we had a set amount of memberships at the New York Sports Club. We've had additional members join as well as other members interested after seeing the good outcome. So we're looking for additional funds for additional members to attend. With that, the board authorization is requested to amend the resolution put forth for the gym membership from November 16th, 2024 by $5,000 to a total of $20,000 for the additional memberships at New York Sports Club. And lastly, to echo what Inspector Niesel said about Father Joseph D'Angelo, he was also the fire department chaplain and 42-year honorary member. Our thoughts are with him and his family during this difficult time. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Chief Town, it's great to see that we have more members that are interested in going into the gym and staying in shape. I think it's the least we can do for our volunteer fire department is to allow them to go to the gym and do what is a requirement for them, staying in shape.
That's correct. A part of the NFPA 1583, they recommend us give the ability for members to have a area to work out. So this is a temporary means until we could figure out the gym setting for the fire department.
I just have one follow-up, Mayor, and this is directed to Gary. Gary, would we need a board resolution to allow the fire commissioner to be included with that group, that gym membership? Is that a, yeah?
Oh, I could go for that, yeah.
Geez, that-
You hinting at something, trustee Fitter?
No, sir. No, sir. Although I'll do push-ups right now.
Oh, okay. All right. I
Or
will do.
sit-ups. Let's make them sit-ups.
All right.
Yep.
And push-ups to follow.
I got one question for you, Chief. Can you give me the 2-minute analogy as best you possibly can on time frame that you know at this stage of the game in regards to the Edgemere Firehouse? Because a lot of people are like, you know, just give us a kind of a broad overview of where we're at with that right now.
Okay, so try and make this as short as possible. The first stage of the firehouse, the asbestos was removed. All the parts have been, all the aspects within the internal fire department were removed out of there. Right now, it's a response-only firehouse. We're at the next stage where we're trying to develop a plan to determine how to reconstruct the firehouse to make it feasible for members to have an area to relocate to, as well as sufficient space for the apparatus to fit for current and future needs. We do have plans in the process. Right now, we're trying to figure out what other items we're going to need: washer, dryer, air compressor. Once we get all that information compiled with Mr. Giuseppe over here, we'll hopefully we could take it to the next step.
Great.
Does that help
Time
answer your
frame?
question?
It does, yeah, no, it's great. And just, does anybody just have an idea of again, best case scenario for the plans and moving forward in regards to the scale of this project?
I would have to defer to
Giuseppe or
Giuseppe
John?
on that.
Thanks,
So-
guys.
Trustee Muldoon, after speaking to the design professionals, the goal is to have everything complete and ready for going out to bid by the end of June. So that'll be the timeframe. This is a big project. I like to put this thing out for at least 4 to 6 weeks to get some numbers, and then we can go from there. It'll be presented to this board after that. You're very welcome.
Any other questions?
Actually, a follow-up to that then. So it would go out to bid before the board sees the plans. Is that correct?
Once I receive everything, I'll circulate that with the board. I've been circulating the plans with the deputy mayor.
And I can forward that, what we have so far to everybody.
Yeah, just, for those of us who probably weren't working as long as you all were, that would be helpful.
You have it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd say the whole board. I think that's been an issue in the past with like it gets ahead of us. So just circle around to everyone before it goes out. Thanks. Thank you, Chief. Mr. Fishberg, and I'll begin. Happy birthday. Thank you for joining us on your
Thank you.
birthday tonight.
Thank you. I couldn't have thought of a better way to spend my birthday. I have nothing on the agenda, although I've spent a few hours this week reviewing, composing, refining several of the resolutions that are on today's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
My daughter is celebrating her 40th birthday tonight with the whole family. So I'm here instead of there.
Well, just as a
You have a
coincidence,
few years on her, I would
my
imagine.
colleague Seema, who is here on many meetings, also has a birthday today. And,
Quite a day.
but she's not here today. I,
Short straw.
Should have a group birthday party here.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Fishberg. Mr. Swazi.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, trustees, residents. Mayor, there's two items on the agenda I'm covering tonight and one item that's not on the agenda that I'm going to update you at your request. Item number 7 is the board authorization is requested to approve and amend the part-time and seasonal hourly rate schedule to include market-driven increases, as well as to include 2 additional civil service approved positions, Director of Swimming Pool Seasonal and Assistant Director of Swimming Pool Seasonal. These increases were included in the 2024-25 budget. Number 8, the annual contractual salary step increments for the CSEA rank and file unit. So the above, the term CBA stands for collective bargaining agreements for those who aren't familiar with the acronym. The above collective bargaining agreements provide for an employee to be granted a salary increase annually to the next higher step within the salary range of the position classification upon recommendation of the department head and the approval of the board of trustees. The 3 agreements are with the CSEA rank and file, the CSEA supervisor unit, and the PBA unit. The date of the step increase is tied to the employee's date of hire, the payroll, which is closer to either June or December date. All are effective June 1st, 2024. As far as if any questions on that, the other item, Mayor, as you know, we have a project that's before us, or it's going to come before us for the abatement of St. Paul's. The materials that need to be abated within St. Paul's need to be done regardless of what we do with the building. And that's a process that was stalled a while back, and it's now back on the radar screen. You would ask that, first of all, Mr. Baroni and his engineers have met with DeVerk and Bartolucci, known as DMB, to go over. They were selected in the process, and we want to bring their design proposal to the board to approve it. But before we did that, you would ask that Mr. Beal, a resident who's been involved with St. Paul's, and also Trustee Muldoon for his construction background also, to sit down and go over the scope of the project with DMB. Just make sure we're all on the same page, because the abatement that will commence at some point in the future will have some limited structural components to it, because you can't get to some of the abated areas without making some structural additions. So I believe we're all on the same page now. So there's a couple of things, and I don't want this to turn into a long discussion, but as long as it needs to be. But first of all, the abatement project is, according to the budget, in the 25-26 fiscal year. But we've been talking about getting it started in the winter of this fiscal year. So for the board to do that, I need the board to actually vote to move or create a capital project this year, move it forward, which is the easy part. The next aspect is, I have Mr. Frank DeVita here. Frank, raise your hand. Mr. DeVita here from DMB, who's a representative working with Mr. Baroni, is here if there's any questions from the board or residents. The other thing is that we originally had the proposal on the agenda tonight, and it was taken off because when you fund a project like this, which could be up to, a couple of $1 million or more, the design aspect can be included into the bond. So if we want to include the design in the bond, that would be on the June 6th agenda, in which case we'd have to wait till July 6th to actually award, let them spend the money. Or we could just suspend the rules and transfer the money from contingent tonight and get started, not worrying about that cost being included in the bond. In other words, we can't, if you don't put the cash in the bond language, you can't go back later and reimburse yourself for the money spent on design. So if we want the $115,000, is it? $115,025. If we want to have the bond pay for that along with the abatement, we'd have to wait till June 6th when the bond is here and to just put that language in there so that we can reimburse ourselves for the cash we're spending on design. If we don't care about the $115,25 being reimbursed through the bond and just pay it out of our own existing funds, then we could suspend the rules tonight and move forward with it. And Irene might be able to explain a little better than I'm doing.
Ms. Wu, do you want to comment on the different alternatives here and what your recommendation would be.
I tried.
Yes, no, Mr. Swazi, you did a good job explaining. Basically, the options are to wait until the next meeting where we will have a bond resolution in place to pay for the design of this project. And then after the design of the project is completed, there will be a cost estimate. We would then amend the bond resolution and include the abatement estimated costs for that bond. So that it would all be included when we go out to bonds, it would include the design and the actual abatement costs. If the board wishes to start the design now, as Mr. Swazi said, we can suspend the rules, do a transfer of funds from contingency to this project to fund the design portion of it. And we can then just do a bond for the abatement costs
So the-
when that
The
cost
net-
is
The net
determined.
difference to us as a village is about 6 weeks. We'll shave 6 weeks off the estimate that Mr. Barone sent out today, Trustee Muldoon. I'm not sure who else is on it from the board, but the schedule as is now, if we were to do what Ms. Wu just explained, we would actually be able to award the project and start the abatement in January of 2025. If we were to award it tonight, take a couple of months to design and then put out the bid for 3 or 4 weeks, we might be able to do it as soon as Thanksgiving of 24. At the end of the day, it's a 6-week difference, so I don't know if it
There-
matters
Okay.
time-wise.
And as far as the money being available in contingency, is there a downside? It wouldn't be bonded, basically. If we do it tonight, suspend the rules, we'll be paying out of contingency. And is there any, do you think that's okay with you?
Yes,
Is
that's
that-
perfectly fine. There's funding available in the contingency account, so we are able to fund it that way.
So one of the things, and thank you trustee Muldoon and Mr. Beal, who's on the advisory committee for your work on this. And Mr. Barone, of course, Mr. Swazi. The thought was, and I think we're all in agreement, if it's something that's going to be done no matter what, the winter would be the best time to get it done. And I think the community is happy to see forward progress on St. Paul's. So trustee Muldoon, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree with it. I'm let's get it done as soon as we can type of a guy anyway. So I would personally, I would like to see us voting it if we can tonight and move the ball forward, because again, we're trying to move all these different balls forward in regards to the survey and the information side. We have to do this phase, which is basically abating the building. And everything just takes months and months and months. And if we lose another 6 weeks, it'll be the end of the year or January, and all of a sudden, we'll be back around to next spring. So in my view, if we can, and Irene, you can find a few dollars, I'd rather move it forward as soon as possible and get this company engaged. I met with them. We had a terrific meeting. They're the real deal. And in order to do this process, again, they're basically doing a complete survey and inspection of the building and are going to come back to us with, recommendations in regards to getting bids to actually do the abatement. And then you go from that process into interior demolition and some structural repairs, so the building is safe to work in for the abatement company in certain areas of the building. So,
Any other trustees? I think
Thanks,
I'm
guys.
in agreement.
Thanks,
with
Rob.
trustee, Muldoon, does anyone have any other comment they want to make on this?
I do,
These
but I'll
different
wait,
ones.
Bruce, if you want to.
I mean, one of the primary considerations in doing work is what is going to be the ambient temperature, humidity outside, and what things that we have not planned for that will probably be coming our way. Obviously, the temperature of the building as you go into the winter will get colder, nastier. And I believe that the earlier you can do the work, the feasibility of it will promote the ability to get it in such a way that we do not get delayed into the summer and spring.
So you're in favor of suspending the rules? Anyone not in favor of suspending the rules or want to say anything? Mr. Trustee Finneran?
Yeah, it's, although I have a great deal of trust and respect for trustee Muldoon and his expertise and Bruce's weatherman expertise, this is the first that I'm hearing about the possibility of moving this up in the agenda. And I would like the 2 weeks to study what this first small part. And again, so I'm correct, this is to design the abatement program.
Right,
Is
so.
that right?
So through the 2 months or so that D&B will spend looking at the building will be to put together design specifications so that they'll put the bid spec together for the company that will ultimately be awarded the bid after these bid specs put together. So we get the design done, and then we put the bid specs that they design out in the world for people to look at for, I'd say, 4 or 5 weeks maybe, because it's a big project. And then we'll get those bids open, and hopefully we have a substantial number of people who can do the job, and we'll come to the board with our recommendation after we check references and make sure the firm is equipped to do the job and that they understand the full scope, because sometimes we get numbers and somebody missed something in the bid. So all that work happens before we bring things to the board. Once we award it to them, and that would be, let's say, sometime in, I don't know, August, it depends on when, if we start this now, June, July, sometime in August, we put the thing out to bid, get it back in September. There's a time frame John put together we can share, but it's, we award it sometime in October, November, and then start the work.
Part of the thought, and I didn't know this option of suspending the rules until now as well, but I think part of the thought with trying to accelerate this is kids are on the fields in the fall, they're on the fields in the spring. Even if it's done safely, let's aim to get it done in the winter, which is the optimal time. And the 6 weeks might make a difference. Now, if you have questions, though, as far as the picking, do you want to hear more about how they came to pick this company?
I would, and the extent of the abatement, I understand, is, correct me if I'm wrong, chemical based. It has to do, chemicals meaning if there's any asbestos, if there's any rodent drop, whatever it is. I'm not sure of the exact extent of the
So-
Maybe
abatement
can you
program.
like take us through some of that?
And Mr. DeVita's here too, if you want to.
Yeah, maybe you should.
My apologies, trustee, because when we pulled off the agenda, you didn't see the proposal itself.
Yeah.
So we could cover that because it's a standard proposal, what the scope is, but we were thinking about the funding issue. And so rather than leave it on here and pull it off, we just took it out completely. I probably should have circulated, but I didn't realize that that was in next year's budget till we got the budget books today. Irene pointed it out to me. And so, we have time, I'm just saying, but it's 6 weeks or 4 weeks.
Is there any way that we can turn that 2-week delay, i.e. vote next on June 6th, I think it's 6th or the 3rd, maybe it's the 3rd, and not have it cause us a 6-week delay on the back end?
Well, you just lose the 2 weeks between the
Right.
6th.
So if we're going to do it this way, we could do it in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So Ed, let me give you guys some color, because I met with the company. I'm familiar with it from a construction perspective. So basically, this company, their job is simple. They have to go, it's not really simple, but it's simple in regards to understanding it. They go into the building and they do a full analysis of the building, and they do a report stating these are the things in this building that need to be abated before you can do construction to make the building safe. And then the other companies, Ralph and the gang, sends it out to bid, get all these different bids to basically abate the building and remove whatever it is, like you said, lead, asbestos, all these different things that they'll go in and check for. So all they're doing basically is going in and doing a full analysis of the building, doing a report and providing it to the village. And then they'll put that out to bid and get recommendations from the companies that were very, very qualified to do this work. But that's their part of it's the first little step of a lot of steps to eventually, please God, getting St. Paul's to be a building that the residents can use in the future.
It should be noted also that, this type of work, we had a project recently where basically a landscape company or a construction company, they want to do a sewer main in our town. They didn't have the experience. They probably subcontracted to the person we actually chose to do the job, the second lowest bidder. So in a case like this, where we have such a special need of abatement, we would turn to D&B, who does this environmental type of work all the time, and say, do you know of vendors we should solicit in the bid process. You know, you can do bids a number of ways. We put it in the paper, we put it on the New York State Contract Reporter, the entire world can see it. And then we also send it to anyone we get references on that we know can do the work to make sure that, just in case they don't see contract report. And we do that with all of our bids to make, we try to cast it as wide as we can. So at the end of the day, we want to make sure that people who apply, respond to the bid are qualified. You know, because sometimes you might get 100 people responding, and there's only 6 real people in there who can do the job. So we'll ask D&B for their experience with vendors who've done this in New York City or around the island. Mr. Beal can reference people in Spalding. Anyone who has any abatement companies who've done this type of work on this type of building, we'll certainly reach out to them to make sure we have a group of people we know can do the job. And then the rules still apply, the lowest responsible bidder that the board can choose from.
And the gentleman who is in the audience,
Mr. DeVita.
and he is, your title, sir?
Vice President with the
I want you to come to the mic, Frank. You could explain the proposal a bit, maybe, to make the trustees more comfortable with what you're.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. So my name is Frank DeVito. I'm a vice president with D&B Engineers and Architects. I represent the Hazardous Material Division and Environmental Remediation Division. As far as the proposal that we put in front of the village, it involves the assessment of lead-based paint, asbestos containing materials, mold, guano. We also included PCB caulk. So the idea is to have a full assessment of the hazardous materials prior to any planned demolition activities. Now, as far as schedule, I think it's important to note the easy part is doing the assessment. The hard part is coming up with the plan to actually do the abatement. So with the plan to do the abatement would have to involve essentially a few things, but most importantly, a component of the master plan that's adaptable to this building. So what does that mean? Let's say the master plan, it takes into account the restoration of the first floor only, then we would focus on abatement of that first floor. We'd also talk about cost. Cost would obviously have to have a major role in the decisions for the abatement plan. Depending on your available resources, our abatement plan would be designed around that. So to that point, again, the assessment aspects are the easy part. The second part, which is the planning, which, Administrator Swazi mentioned, that's the hard part where we would have to have a scoping session with essentially the village, with the DPW, with essentially the architectural board as well, to come up with a plan that focuses again on the village's intent to essentially both abate the building and restore the building. That's why I think it's important to try to do that sooner than later. I would also recommend that we do the work during the winter months. It is less intrusive when it comes to the surrounding community. There's less activities going on. We've represented New York State Parks on several projects, one of which we discussed was the former Kings Park Psychiatric Center. And we've come up with master plans for abatement and demolition similar to that would be done at the St. Paul's facility.
Does D&B?
D&B.
Do you perform the assessment and then do the abatement itself?
So we would put together the design plans for the abatement. Essentially, we would specify the limits of abatement that would be required, again, to meet the intended redevelopment goals. Once those plans are put together, they would go out to bid. At that point, we would help the village with any of the procurement aspects with pre-award meetings and so on.
Thank you. One other quick question, Ms. Mayor. Mr. Beal, do you have an opinion? Would you mind opining for us here at the microphone?
Sure. So I was in the couple of meetings. I think you attended one of them. They certainly have prerequisite experience, have done this type of stuff for municipalities extensively. And very recently, I forget the name of the project, Frank, where you were very recently. And yeah, my opinion is that they are ultimately qualified to do this work, and that frankly, abatement has to happen no matter what we do. I think everybody knows that. And, this one should kind of a no-brainer to me.
Thank you very much.
Just 2 questions with you, sorry, to follow up. So if I understood you correctly, the actual work of abatement, your recommendation is that would not happen until we determine how we are going to use the building going forward?
Well, ideally, it would be a component of the abatement. So the two major components would be the master plan for the building,
Right.
but it's not really necessary for the abatement. And the second thing is budget. Knowing what budget you have available for abatement at this time, then we would design a program that again would fit both the needs of your budget and your plans.
So is it necessary for us, for example, to decide we are only going to utilize the first floor, just hypothetically speaking, before you can do the abatement work, or you can get started?
No,
matter-
I apologize. I believe we could get started before that,
That's what I
before
was-
having any of those decisions made. Ideally, it would be great to have that information beforehand for economy of scale. So this way we can design it around your needs and have to do it only one time.
And then when you do the original, I guess, design or assessment, is that report shared with the public? How would that be shared, that information? I think people would be curious to see what your assessment is.
Sure. So the assessment report would be shared with the village DPW,
Yep.
at which point then it would be circulated from there. Our initial report would findings would include anything that we found relative to the hazardous materials that we're investigating. So again, asbestos, lead-based paint, mold, guano, and PCB caulk.
Okay, and just because things are very touchy, you did mention a couple of times doing this work and the abatement for demolition, which is not the intent, right? The intent is not demolition. It is to clean up the work that needs, the conditions of the building that need to be cleaned up.
So it would support any intended redevelopment of the building, whether that would include any component of demolition,
Okay,
if it should
that's
be
clear.
included, or restoration.
Right, thank you.
I have one final question, sir. Are you going to be doing an assessment? I guess maybe even Ralph, you can answer this, of the entire building from the basement to the fourth floor.
Yes, we are.
Can I ask you a question, Frank? Because you said something I don't think is clear, and I want not to prolong this conversation. I think it's important you clarify. How does our budget impact abatement? I would think the abatement drives the budget, not the reverse. You said whatever our budget is. If I only have $100,000, you're gonna abate that whole building?
Well, no. So what we would do if we were told that the village only has a budget realistically, let's say of $1 million, we would look at the abatement cost for the entire building and then try to provide some recommendations as for potential for maybe different components or stages for the abatement. But ideally, the first step would be to provide a full abatement cost for the building, and then determining how much money you have available, what would be the next step.
Okay, thank you.
So one quick question. I think you mentioned in the winter time, it might be a better time to do it because it has less disruptions because of the activities. So I'm just trying to understand what kind of scope of work that could affect activities around the building, or, I mean, the building inside the building is empty.
So obviously, we want to try to perform the work when there's less essentially activities going on around the building. Now,
Around the
as far
building.
as asbestos abatement, it will be done in accordance with New York State Department of Labor requirements, where everything is encapsulated, it's removed properly. There's air sampling that's done prior to, during, and after abatement activities. So that would cover any aspects relative to potential fugitive dust and fugitive migration of any materials. But ideally, we would suggest trying to do the work when there's not as much accumulation of and use of the ball fields and of the playground and the surrounding area.
Okay, thank you.
So Frank, I got a couple of things for you based on our discussion when we met and went through all these details for the average person who doesn't understand this type of work. So with the abatement with St. Paul's, it goes hand in hand with the interior demolition. We talked about this because the majority of the building, unfortunately, because of lack of roofing and maintenance, the majority of that building has a lot of moisture in it. The plaster is pretty much shot. Most of the flooring is shot. We talked about this. So the majority of St. Paul's, realistically, the interior of the building will have to be stripped and save all the areas that are, still in great shape in regards to woodwork, staircases, these beautiful tile floors, other areas. But the I'll call it the generic material that's in the building, which would be plaster, flooring, wood flooring. It's all at this stage of the game, the life of that material is shot. So what you do is, and we talked about it, is combine the abatement with removal of the interior of some of these surfaces, because it's a lot more cost effective to do a combination of interior demo and abatement together then abatement only at the initial stage, and then move into interior demolition. And that's a thing that will have to be looked at in detail in regards to getting the best pricing on that, because that'll be a big price driver in regards to saving money to be able to do abatement and interior as a combination based on your report, you know. And the other thing in regards to removing this material, doing it in the wintertime is the best time to do it. Again, because the lack of traffic in the fields, believe it or not, cold air helps. But there's, when it comes to air cleaning techniques, all kinds of restrictions and regulations when it comes to abatement. It's an extremely thorough system that has to be, you know, all kinds of reports, supervision, states involved, villages involved. It's a very, very detailed process and a very thorough process. And the company that eventually the village will hire has to be a super qualified firm that there's no nonsense here. It's got to be done right. And it's the same way with the interior demolition of that building. It has to be done where you contain all this dust and do it exactly above and beyond the New York State codes and regulations for the safety of the residents. So
Right, because we have our middle school is right across the street.
Yep.
And our ball field and there are houses around there too.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So we talked about this, even the truck routes out.
Yeah, it's all
will be
planned.
defined. Without getting to details, because it's a lot for lay people, that New York State and OSHA requirements, the way this material is handled, the negative pressure, encapsulated space so that air flows in, the fact that the workers are, you know, and the trucks that leave are fully sealed, and there's a chain of command from the moment it's taken to it gets to the facility in Pennsylvania, wherever it goes.
Yeah.
This is highly regulated stuff. We do it on small scales. This building, every time we do something, we do it on a smaller scale, but it's always the same level of preparation, work, and regard for transportation.
Yeah, no, Ralph, you're dead on. There's no nonsense when it comes to this system. It's got to be done right, monitored, and the village would be very involved in that, Giuseppe and John, and just monitoring it. And also there'll be individual, right? We talked about that. There'll be independent monitoring too, in
law
regards to the testing and all the other stuff, air testing and all that stuff, right?
Correct. During construction, the village would be required to hire a third-party air inspector, DOL certified, to do air monitoring during abatement activities related to asbestos.
Got you. Okay, great.
And this designs for assessment and planning. The first stage, right? This piece that we're talking about, 115,000.
And $25.
But Vinny, and how does it, if we're doing, like, say you decide that they would just do the first 2 floors, then you have the 3rd and 4th floor, and if we eventually go into a project down the road, what happens with the work, the stuff that we did not abate on the 3rd and 4th floor? I mean, do we have to
my-
do this again?
My opinion, professional opinion from dealing with this, whether you deal with a house that's 5 or 10,000 square feet, or you do a building that's 125,000 square feet, it just takes longer. And believe it or not, it's actually easier in ways for us to build larger homes than smaller homes. The same way with this project. In my opinion, there's only one way to approach this, and that's to abate the entire building
Right.
and
That's it.
strip out, because you got to get rid of all the moisture and the contaminants in the building.
Because why would we just do the first 2 floors?
No,
We're
you
eventually
would
gonna
never
be
do that.
Doing something in the building.
You would never do that. You don't have to.
Oh, we
You don't
can
have to
do 4?
finish.
Okay.
You don't have to finish the entire building, of course. You do what you can afford to finish in regards to square footage. But what you want to do is you want to get all the debris out of there that needs to get out of there, the moisture out of there, dry the building, get rid of all the contaminants, and then decide what the village and the residents want in the building and they can afford. So, you know, whether you finish the first floor or just the second floor, all the other areas can be left completely unfinished with proper air circulation, but they're clean, they're safe. And, you know, and that's how you approach it, both in a home and in a building the size of St. Paul's.
Staff would recommend full
Yeah.
abatement.
And by the way, Ralph, you have the best tie of the night and the most patriotic tie of the night. So
I always wear
nice
them.
job in your tie.
I wear it 3 times a year: Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and 4th of July.
Excellent.
Well,
we may have,
Any other
Thanks, guys.
questions from any trustees on this or,
I believe that this conversation has digressed significantly, as the only issue here is to start the roadmap as to what to do. Not to do anything, but just to do the assessment necessary
that we, the village and the board, have the ability to know what the plan is in the future.
I,
That it?
All right, so at this point, unless there are other questions. would you
yeah,
have
one
something
last
else?
comment. Bruce, I agree and completely disagree with you in the same sentence. What we're trying to do here is an opportunity to give people some broad color as to the process beyond getting the report and where you move from there in regards to how long the process takes and everything else like that. That's it. This is just the first step, but it's nice for people to get a little bit of clarity in regards to the process and how this whole thing works. That's all. So thank you very much.
However, Mayor, at this point, I think you're looking for a motion.
So I'll ask, yes, is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Yes, there is.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right, the rules are suspended. Is there a motion? What is the language that you need?
I think the motion has to be a 3-bulleted motion. You need to move the capital project for the abatement into the 24-25 fiscal year. You getting this, Gary? You'd have to transfer $115,025 from contingent to a fund to be determined, either engineering, the St. Paul's abatement project. And the third thing would be awarding the proposal to DMB that
All right,
the amount of one.
I think Kelly probably has that.
at this point, Irene, do you have the details on where we'd be transferring the money from?
So number one, we would create this, move forward this capital project, the abatement of St. Paul's. So the board would vote on, agreeing to that. The two would be the transfer of funds, this $115,025 from contingency to capital projects. We will then fund, this new capital project that's created. And then the third item is to award Engage DMB. So.
All right, does somebody want to make that motion?
So moved on all three subsections.
All right, all in favor? Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
That concludes my comments.
All right,
Mayor.
thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I doubt it.
Thank you, Frank. for being here.
Okay, so at this point, I just wanted to share a statement. You heard a bit about BCI. Another thing that I didn't mention earlier was that when I began on this and I found 5 residents that formed that initial steering committee. Many of you here probably know who they are. We have what I think is notable is that they came with a commitment to reaching the goal that I had set forth, and that goal was a project at St. Paul's that preserves part or all of the building, has widespread community support, and can be executed. They bring different disciplines. Their experience is terrific, and we have been focused on that goal, leaving any personal opinions aside, no discussion or steering it. And this is something that I think is so critical to success. And, you know, many say it's impossible. You're never going to get there. And I understand why they feel that way, but I do think having a neutral group moving forward and letting it be driven by residents, which is what we've hired BCI to help us with, is absolutely essential to have any chance of success in this endeavor. So I just wanted to share, and it's in my mayor's column, I am committed to supporting the efforts of Branstetter Carroll, the firm hired with a unanimous vote of the Board of Trustees, as they develop a recreation master plan that includes St. Paul's. I support the gathering of comprehensive data that is representative of all residents. This will allow the village, along with Branstetter Carroll, to leverage data on the needs, wants, and desires specific to the St. Paul's main building to develop a master plan that includes preserving part or all of the St. Paul's main building. I'm committed to being transparent and sharing all information gathered from Branstetter Carroll regarding St. Paul's, and I'm excited to work with the entire board on this important undertaking. It has never been done before. And, you know, as we discussed and looked back and figured why have we tried so hard and never been successful, I think one thing that has been missing is a process like we have now that is driven by the community. So I hope that, I know this is a you know, topic on for tonight, and I hope that other members of the Board of Trustees have heard enough from the volunteers and from Branstetter and from the trustees who have been involved to appreciate the importance of sticking with this. And I, come back to Paul Blake's pointing out the fact that they knew, they are expert at finding what there is community support for, and we need to let them do that job. We've hired them to do it, and I'd like to help them to see it through. One thing, actually, we went over the agenda. I don't know if either Judy or trustee Ty or trustee Courtney wanted to speak to one of the items on the agenda.
Yeah, Judy, want to start and then?
Sure, we'll jump in. So yes, so one of the agenda items is to transfer funds to allow us to hold what will hopefully be one of several festivals that we'll be having in town over the summer months. So on June 14th, which is a Friday evening from 5 to 9, we'll be having a patriotic kickoff to summer, as we're calling it, which will be an opportunity for residents to join with other residents, merchants, et cetera, on 7th Street. I'll let Jessica talk a little bit about what the setup is going to be and what we're going to be having, but it'll be a fun night for everybody. We have a great deal of thanks to go to John Wilton and the Chamber of Commerce for giving us some support, some great insight and ideas about what we should be considering, and partnership has been wonderful there, and also with Paul and the recreation team as well. So maybe tell a little bit more about some of the things that we're thinking about.
Yes, so we're really excited for this family-oriented event, and it's going to be Friday night, 5 to 9. And we have a lot of exciting activities that we have been planning. We're going to have a bouncy house, we're going to have a band, and we are going to have balloon artists, and we're going to, actually, I have contacted our schools, the art teachers and the PTA as well. So we're going to have a poster art show, and we're going to invite our students in schools, 2nd to 5th graders, to participate in our patriotic kickoff to summer poster art show. And they are going to create their artwork at home, and we are, looking forward to them bringing their amazing artwork back to us. We're going to put them up in the windows in the stores on 7th Street. So it's going to be a fun event. We're really looking forward to it. And I really want to thank John Wilton for helping us and assisting us in all. It's a lot of work that I know how much work, I had no idea how much work you are doing. Now we're getting a taste of it. And also Paul Blake, thank you. And we're going to have bubble machines. Thank you for making my wish come true. I think the little children are going to have fun with some bubbles.
And just, I forgot to mention a key component, because we're calling it's, first of all, it's Flag Day, so that's why it's patriotic. But a key component of the kickoff to summer is that we have lots of organizations coming to share information about what their summer programs are for village residents. So it'll be a great kind of one-stop shop to learn all the great things that are offered, obviously through recreation, through the library. The New York Islanders will be there. Some of the sports camps will be there. The summer enrichment programs will be there. So it's a great chance for residents and their families to come. And because there's so many things that happen over the summer, sometimes you miss some of them. So this hopefully will provide people the opportunity to hear what's out there and take advantage of some of them.
Yeah, and we're gonna have a fire truck. Yeah.
Thank you so much, trustee Todd and trustee Courtney, for working all the work you're putting into this. I think we're all excited for it. So. Right, any other trustee comments?
Yes. Kira? I want to make sure that everybody knows what a great job she has done on behalf of the veterans. Not only for the police department, but one of the other banners there has a former serviceman who has an eagle on his shoulders, and that was my father. And you did an absolutely spectacular job, and the village is better for it. And thank you very much on behalf of all the veterans.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I just wanted to say thank you all, mayor and board, for approving my proposal. I'm really happy that this idea was able to become a reality, and really just thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for doing it. I also want to thank our village clerk, Kelly Galenick, who was so helpful working with Kira to make sure the logistics all came together and that it happened, and they look fantastic. So thank you so much, Kira. Excellent project. Thank you, Kelly. Any other trustee comments?
Yes. So it came to my attention, and I think most people know about this topic, our great parking lot on 7th South, in bad need to be redone as soon as we can get a design and work on this, hopefully over the next 6 months, 9 months, a year. It's going to take some time, but it ties into this other issue. We have more and more restaurants in town, which is great. Not necessarily for our waistline, but great for having these amazing restaurants moving into town. We're very fortunate that they want to move into our town and provide great restaurants for us to go and have a bite to eat and have a drink. And we really appreciate that. And the board is 100% behind helping our business owners be successful and providing a great service for our village. Having said that, the problem we're having is because we're having more and more restaurants than we've ever had, it creates more and more garbage and more food left over and all kinds of things. And on the back of 7 South, most of you guys have noticed, again, dumpsters, food, smell in the summertime. The business owners and the restaurant owners that own those stores on 7th Street that back up to 7 South keep the majority of their garbage by the back of their building. Okay. And it's creating a huge issue and has been for a long time in regards to rodents that are coming from the tracks, mostly coming across the parking lots at nighttime and having dinner and lunch and whatever else they can find, and then head back home later on in the night. So it's a huge problem, both from a rodent issue and a health issue. It's also an issue in regards to the smell. It smells horrible in the summertime and really in the hot months. You have debris and liquid that's coming out of these dumpsters and bags onto the sidewalk where, again, my favorite people in the world, the seniors, 85-year-old lady is just walking down and she's got to sludge through some of this liquid that's on the sidewalk. I did a deep dive over the last 3 or 4 weeks and met with a lot of the new business owners, the restaurants that are coming into town, and the existing business owners. And the general consensus is they want to get this garbage and figure out a way to solve this problem and get the garbage away from their building and get it over, similar to the situation that Prost have a little area that they put their dumpsters over by the back of the fence. And it's all nicely enclosed and that nice black and green fencing that's actually pleasant to look at. But what I would do, if we can go ahead and we'll have a whole discussion here coming up in the next bunch of months about this, is to be able to move that garbage into dumpsters in enclosures by the back of the parking lot. And I've talked to John Baroni about this as well. Yeah, we will lose some parking spaces and we are tight on parking, but when we get a chance to redesign that parking lot and redo that parking lot, I think we can pick up additional spaces in the parking lot for sure. And now we make a considerable change in quality of life for the majority of people who park their cars on 7 South and use the back entrances to go into all these nice restaurants and stores and not have to deal with rodents, not have to deal with ugly looking fences. There's a million different types of fences, enclosures, hiding this garbage and dumpsters. And we can clean up the backs of the buildings. So it actually looks like, a really beautiful backside of 7th Street, just like the front of 7th Street looks so beautiful. I think it's time to take this on, make this change so people can have a really beautiful parking lot to park in right now, because that's not the case, and eliminate this big problem. And also, it'll make a big difference for the restaurant owners to not have to deal with this rodent issue against their buildings, which is no good for anybody. So it's just a topic that I wanted to bring up and share with you guys. And I've talked to some of the board members about it, not that many. And I'd like to see us zone in on this over the next 2 or 3 months and see if we can come up with a solution that will be great for the residents and great for the business owners all in one. So just wanted to talk about that. Thank
Any
you.
other trustee comments? Okay, we have Mr. Wilton here from the Chamber of Commerce. If you'd like to come up and give a brief update.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees, John Wilton from your Chamber of Commerce. Veterans recognition banners are just a positive statement for the village. It's just incredible. It gives us more credibility and keeps us current with other villages. So I had the pleasure of speaking to Congressman Esposito's office earlier today. And they will be issuing a citation to Kira. Mr. and Mrs. O'Leary's here. So I want you to know I officially bestow on you the Order of the Pineapple for what you have done to develop such a fine daughter. I mean, it's absolutely tremendous, okay? But I want you to know that he is going to issue a citation, but I believe that he will be reading it into the congressional record. And he will also, if he can't read it into the congressional record, read it off the House floor. So we're working on getting that done. So Kira, you will be officially recognized in the United States Congress. So I think that's. Communities looking forward to the Memorial Day Parade. Scout 243 will be on flag duty. They will retire the flags and they will also be the placement of the flags following proper flag protocol, honoring who gave some and some who gave all. The landowners, the property owners in the village are relieved and breathing less stressfully about the paver issue. So we've kind of stabilized the anxiety that was being manifested by the owners of the property. And they understand that we'll be addressing it at some point in the fall. All right. The T20 World Cup, which is from 6/1 to 6/12, the police department and what's happening. So this is what the Nassau Council of Chambers believes. They believe there will be 300,000 people countywide, internationally, coming from all different places, countries, and visiting us. They estimate that it'll be a $200 million forecast of projected income to the surrounding communities. The Garden City Hotel is filled, as well as all the surrounding hotels are filled. We have sent out notifications to all of the existing hotels. There are two that are opening up that may not be on board, but we've sent them notices about Garden City's hospitality. So we've already sent that out to see if we can garner. And the purpose for that is I've gone out to the business community and tried to express that the pedestrian traffic will increase. Hopefully that the overflow will come here. And they're looking at it to helpfully offset the loss of the income from the promenade by having at least a 12-day shot in the arm of potential income. So hopefully it'll be good. The light poles were freshly painted. They look great. We put up the new banners that we made that you saw that they look great. In painting the light poles, we took all the lighting. The lighting makes us that pop, that electricity that makes us stand out. Mr. Baroni and Giuseppe, we had a call today. They intend on rewrapping them again. The sooner the better. That would help the community as best we can. Tony Taco will have a soft opening this Wednesday. Okay, they've done a spectacular job. If you haven't seen it, it is absolutely amazing. It's really well designed. A Noema, which has been waiting to open for 2 years now, hopefully is looking for a July opening. We'll see. There's still issues with the fire marshal. We're working on that. Also East Rockaway Coffee, which is right across the street from Prost, which used to be the Greek luncheonette as we referred to it. That should be opening at some point during the summer. To belay what Trustee Muldoon said, so we have commuter rats. They come at night. They must go somewhere else in the day because of the Long Island Railroad's proximity. But as silly as it may sound, it's becoming a major, major issue. And as we generate it, so I think we're going to have a real sit-down meeting, man, and we're going to have to come up with a plan because as we become more restaurant-centric, the problem is going to exponentially multiply, and it's becoming an issue. It's becoming an issue that the tenants are now coming up and saying, John, we've got to handle it. In the past, it was not as bad. I have here, which we won't address tonight, but I have a 2017 proposal for a parking structure feasibility study that we did 2017, the chamber. It may be worth revisiting. This was done by Cameron Engineering. Okay. So I think it's something that we're going to have to study because with all the money we've spent, all the consultations we've done, all the things that we philosophized about, we have 3 pounds of cars and 2 pounds of parking, and it's not going to change. So we need to address it somehow. The number of emails and calls to the chamber have gone up exponentially. Kira had the pleasure of spending a few hours with me this week. She's with me. We get 20, 30 phone calls an hour. It's still about the promenades because the villages outside of Garden City don't know that we're not having it. So they're calling about who's the band, what are the giveaways, what's the theme, what's the event. That'll abate, but it's just happening. I also think both trustees that we've had developed this fine entertainment relationship. I think we should send a flyer out to the business community. I've gone up and
Well-
down the block and talked to the business community about the T20 World Cup. But and in doing that, I also talked to them about the festival that we're gonna have, the patriotic flag thing. But I think we should put something in writing from the village to the business community saying this is what we're doing.
Right.
All right.
And John, we sent Chris an outline today of what to include in that, so we'll have that probably tomorrow for you.
Okay, so that'll be great. To make everybody smile, Adelphi had its commencement ceremony over 2 days. Everything went smoothly and we sent our graduates away to be successful in whatever careers they took. So we had no events that would have been uncomfortable. That really is it. I just want to say, your chamber is, again, we're trying to get more interns like Kira on board and do things like that and try to educate the younger staff. We're going to do a Narcon training program during the summer for our students at the high school level. I reached out to the colleges. They said, John, we're going to do it ourselves. But at the high school level, we're going to have a program this summer where we'll certify people and train them in the use of Narcon as unfortunately this epidemic continues to grow. So we'll have that set up. I don't know where we'll do it in the village, but we'll work that out and everything. By the way, I'm so delighted that you had moved me up on the agenda because I will be leaving now to go visit my 12-year-old granddaughter who will be turning 13 going into her teens. So I'll be leaving now. I wish you a happy Memorial Day, but I do want to say I salute those that made the ultimate sacrifice for us so that we can all be here. Thank you so very much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. But if you have, could you stay for 1 minute?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Avron Brothers, do we know are they opening soon? Are they close to Avron Brothers?
Hurry up and go slow. My answer is yes.
Okay,
When, I don't know.
okay.
Okay, Tony Taco's moving along. They laid the concrete floors today, so they're really moving along. I will tell you, and I'm sure Vinny knows, I'm sorry, Trustee Muldoon knows, I met with the guys from Tony Taco. They were there it's a family unit. So the difference is when you had a family unit that's committed to getting a job done, they got it done. And the Tony Taco's the same. I'm sorry, forgive me. Tap Room is the same, but on a different level. So I think Ivorone is a family unit too. Is there any zoning issues or, I'm sorry, any permit issues? I don't know of any permit issues. I think it's just a matter of getting them to hammer the nails in quicker and, hang the wallpaper up faster.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, John. We appreciate
Yeah.
you and your entire chamber and
Yeah.
all the work that they've done over the years, and keep up the good work and
Yeah.
keep helping us to be all successful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Appreciate it.
All right, so we'll move on now to citizen comments on agenda items. Are there any residents here with a citizen comment on agenda items in the room? Yes, Mr. Salem.
Good evening, George Salem. I'm wondering if the new board committee has a name.
So what we have is, I have a mayor's advisory committee, which are the 5 residents, and we have another resident who's been helping out, who's not officially on it with our publicity. So the 5 members on the mayor's advisory committee, Walter Beal, who's right to your left there, John Cantwell, right next to him, Bill Cavan, who's in the room, Jim Apostolides, who I think is just wrapping up a European trip and not here. And
What is the
Soraya
name- what
Gage,
is
who
the name of
could
the new
not make it.
committee?
That was the Mayor's Advisory Committee on St. Paul's.
That stays, that name?
That is what I called them, yes. And what we have now is the steering committee, which is something we needed to interact with BCI. So I included those 5 who had been involved in the process already. I included the two trustees who had been on the St. Paul's Committee and were involved in the hiring of BCI, and another trustee, Trustee Courtney, and Paul Blake, and Ralph Swazi. So that is the steering committee. I know there's a,
Yeah.
okay.
You have the 10 people with expertise on those technical engineering and et cetera skills.
We're not at that point now. We're at the stage we're at, as you heard from BCI, is listening to residents and surveying. So I expect that we will be expanding. And I mentioned already some changes we're going to have as we get into different stages. People with different expertise will assist us.
Okay. And I have a question for Paul Blake. I don't understand the arrangement with SASSA, is it? Are we gonna have as many gazebo concerts as usual plus SASSA concerts? Does that give us?
Mr. Dassa is the gentleman that provides us the entertainment for the gazebo concerts.
Right.
And he is providing us with the same number that we do every year, which is 6.
Oh,
And again, we have some terrific acts scheduled.
I thought it was gonna be a big increase.
We have not increased the budget for concerts for the past 5 years, so we will be having the same number of 6 concerts. And Mr. Dassa has been supplying those acts again for 20+ years. This is nothing new.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Salem. Anyone else in the room with a comment on an agenda item? All right. Anyone on Zoom with a comment on an agenda item?
Hello, good evening. Bob Orris, 28 Grove.
Hello,
Can you hear me?
we can hear you. Yes, hi.
Okay. Yeah, I've been hearing this abatement pertaining to for St. Paul's, but I haven't heard anything about the environmental study. Is that is that going to be separate? Is that going to be included in the abatement? And I also
There was
heard
just
that
some background noise here. Can you repeat that? You didn't hear anything about what?
the environmental studies, environmental impact studies. That's supposed to be done usually it's done in order to give the person who's doing the abatement an idea of where to go and what to do. I haven't heard anything about that. I also heard the gentleman who came to the podium saying that they're going to do abatement for only the areas of the building that that the village wants to use. And I don't agree with that. I agree with Mr. Muldoon's assessment that the whole building has to be done. And that's also within the Westerman report, that the entire building has to come up to code before any part of the building is used. So I'd like to have you comment on either one or all of it.
All right, so just one thing to be clear is what we decided on tonight was the company who's going to do this study to evaluate what needs to be abated and help us with the RFP that will go out for abatement and a schedule for abatement. And as he explained, we will get information on complete abatement of the whole building. And then he will also be able to advise us on other options if we wish to get that advice. And Mr. Swazi, did you want to add anything to that?
No, it's just, environmental studies fall more under the New York State SECRA law. So if you are going to do something impactful at that site, whether it be full preservation or partial preservation, whatever the building is going to be, a SECRA study, SECRA form is required. There's a type 2, which is it's no impact to the community, and type 1, which is a little more extensive. So I think any environmental component of a project of some magnitude would require a SECRA form. We're not at the point now to determine if it's a type 1 or a type 2 action, but that's required by law in New York State.
Does that answer your question?
Well, partially, yeah. I mean, as I say, where is that study in relationship to abatement? Is that going to be part of the abatement, before the abatement, after the abatement?
So what we're doing here is recognizing that whatever decision is made on what to do with St. Paul's building, abatement is something that will have to be done. So as we are undertaking this surveying, the process of identifying the projects that would have community support, we can go ahead and move forward on the abatement. The same way we were able to move forward on removing the stained glass windows to be safely stored. As we're able to get things done, we're going to do them. If it's something that will have to be done regardless of what conclusion we come to at the end of all this surveying.
It's a cart before the horse question. We're not at the point where we can answer the question what the environmental study needs to be, or when it should take place. But the abatement is a compartmentalized thing that has to happen no matter what we do. And it has to happen before we do anything.
All right.
I kind of
anything
agree
else?
with Mr. Muldoon. As far as all the studies I've read on St. Paul's, it sounds to me, in order to reuse it, you virtually have to gut the whole building. I mean, that's what I've been reading.
Well-
There's not much left to really save.
Another thing that has been thought of is as we do this abatement, we will likely have more information about some of the structural, the beams and stuff inside the building. There's a lot, if you look through those reports, that is unknown at this time. But another advantage, not only are we doing it because we have to do it regardless, but in doing it, it may well give us a better understanding of some of the issues with the building and the work that would need to be done for any different alternative. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I'm just letting Trustee
Yeah, I'm just-
Muldoon chime in because I think he's in agreement and.
Yeah, I'll give you my 2 cents on that. One of the most important things, irrespective of what goes on at St. Paul's, the building as a whole, in order to move forward, there are certain things you just have to do to make that happen. And the abatement is one. To me, interior demolition is critical. That's number 2. You save all the things in the building that you can absolutely should and would save. Because once you do that, now you expose the actual structure to open air, even though it's in the interior of that building. And now the building can dry out for the first time in actually 30 years over the course of several months. That building will have a chance to dry out. Then you can do a full assessment of the structural beams. The majority of them will and are petrified, but once they dry out, you can do a full assessment, engineering assessment, because you'll be able to see everything, evaluate everything. And then as you're moving forward in the planning stages and the architectural stages, you can build in that engineering that you need to build in, because now you have full access to the actual structure because it's been stripped. And that structure, the majority of the structure in St. Paul's is sound. Is there a certain percentage of structural damage in the building? Absolutely there is. But the majority of that structure is solid as a rock. But again, in order to verify that, you would need to do the interior demo. And once you do that, then you can do a full assessment and move the ball forward on the architectural phase.
Okay, there is another thing I remember from the Westerman report that he did sampling of the flooring for water content. Now, according to, the requirements, you can't have any more than about 12 to 14%. And he said all the samples he took were higher than 20%, which means that virtually all the floors are gone. To dry them out, instead of having wet floors, now you're going to have dry rot instead of wet. I don't see much difference between the two, except the fact that dry rot is even worse because the fibers of the wood are now doesn't have the tensile strength that you should have in order to put weight on it.
At this point, I think I appreciate the comments. I think we're going to move because I will have many opportunities, I think, and we're going to know more as we go forward to discuss all these items. So
Okay, yeah, I appreciate reading the report and whatever. And I don't know if you know, but I've already asked to be part of the committee going forward, once you get to that point on finance and so on. So I hope you take that under advisement and let me know if you want me to be part of that.
Thank you, Mr. Rose.
Thank you.
Right, any other comments on agenda items in the room or in Zoom? On Zoom? Okay. All right, so we will now go to the approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the May 9th, 2024 board meeting minutes?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Do we have a motion to approve the May 14th, 2024 special board meeting?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously as well. We'll move on to new business. I'm going to begin with proposal for an appointment of Ed Finneran to join the Finance Committee for the upcoming year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Approve. All in favor? And that passes unanimously. At this point in the formal agenda, I know there was a traffic meeting immediately before. I had put this on the agenda. The prior traffic commission had been working on Stewart Avenue and on Sixth Street, and I wanted an update from the new traffic commission, which is 3 new members. And we'll begin with the recommendation on Stewart Avenue. Did you vote on that during your meeting?
Yes, we did, Mayor. The commission voted 3-1 not to go forward with the road diet program for Stewart Avenue. It had been a program that we discussed quite extensively in the last term. We had hired Creighton Manning to assist us with design. John Baroni helped. There was a lot of discussion about traffic, a lot of discussion about buildup, discussion about speed. It was a very diligent, thorough look at taking potentially substantial parts of Stewart Avenue in both directions, down from 3 lanes to 2. And the commission decided not to move forward. There was some thought that maybe we do a partial plan, a partial road diet. That it did not pass either. But what we do have is we have the plans. If things change and circumstances warrant, we can address it. But the vote was 3-1 against, and we will move on.
Okay, and the other
I
item,
just want to ask trustee, so it's going to remain as 3 lanes?
That is correct.
Okay.
The only thing that will change is that there will be 5 dedicated marked out parking spots in front of 365 Stewart, which are currently there now. So there'll be no parking spots added, but there'll be demarcations so that'll be easier to navigate.
Correct. And one thing on that, it will be a 2-lane heading east from Franklin to North St. James. That'll be just a complete 2-lane just for that period from Franklin to North St. James, and then it branches right back out to a 3-lane.
That is correct, right past the parking spots.
Yes, correct. Correct.
all right, and the other report was the prior traffic commission, as you are aware, had been working extensively on reopening Sixth Street Extension. I had written about that in mayor's columns. It's something we felt, I and the last traffic commission felt strongly that it was an important thoroughfare for the village, traffic-wise, for safety and access reasons. Did the traffic commission vote on that issue?
Yes, there was an informal vote, and it was unanimous not to move forward. We were apprised by the dean that after consultation with the governing board at the cathedral, which called the chapter, they decided not to reopen the road. There is a massive 10-year plan to reimagine the topography there, and it did not include a roadway. And I understand that the macadam has been taken up. So there's going to be big changes there. We spent a lot of time. We had Mr. Baroni and his team come up with schematics. So it was a very intense discussion. There was a lot of communication by the mayor. But once we found out that the chapter did not want to move forward, we brought it up at the commission today, and the commission voted unanimously not to pursue it into the future, and wish the cathedral luck going forward.
I'd like to comment on that. I actually called Michael Sniffen today because I wanted to hear it directly from him, and they basically were in their mind in the agreement that they want to remove the road to create about a 3.5 acre open park area. They're removing 3 acres of asphalt, creating a large green space, about 3.5 acres. I asked him, is it welcome to the residents of Garden City? He said, absolutely. They're going to do a bunch of walking paths on there. They're going to do a lot of new landscaping. They're going to do 2 new beautiful entrances, according to him. And that was his statement directly to me today. And I just wanted to share with the public. And I asked him, was that okay? And he said, yes. So that's where they're at. They're going to make that area a large park area. And that was the information I got from him directly today.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. I did have one quick comment. I chaired the Traffic Commission meeting for the first time today, and we were moving through a big agenda. And I inadvertently stated that opposition that we had on the board, I'm sorry, on the commission, was a board position. It certainly was not a board position. And I did inadvertently state that, and I just want to let you know that I did, and it was a mistake, and I'm sorry for that, but it was certainly unanimous on the 4 commission members that we not move forward, and whether or not we take it up in resolution here is another matter. Thank you.
Yes, I just think it's kind of unfortunate because that road is particularly important to our emergency service vehicles. The fire department gets quite a few calls at Adelphi University, and also that's the state section of the village. So it would have made our life a lot easier if we had had access to that road. Excuse me, sorry. As far as their plans, that's the limited, what you just said, Trustee Muldoon, right?
They had a 10-year plan. They started in 2015, and they made no mention of any buildings being built there or any ideas of any buildings being built there. It's designed for a park. It has been designed for 10 years, not in the last 2 or 3 years. And they want to welcome the residents back onto that property and bring it back to its old beautiful self. And it'll be actually the largest open space area on their property, undisturbed. And that was the information I got. I do think it's very important. The cathedral has been a huge part of the history of this town and A.T. Stewart. And, just personally, I believe it's very important that the village and the cathedral, whoever is running it, works together for the better of the village and the residents. And I do agree 100%. It's a big inconvenience for the people who live on the Adelphi section. I used to travel that road every day when I leave my home and go to my office, and it was very convenient for me. It has been out of commission since, I believe, the middle of 2019. So yeah, regrettably, it definitely is inconvenient for people that live in that part of town and stuff like that. But this is the decision they've made. It's their property, and they're moving forward. So that's the information I
Yeah.
have.
So we'll
Okay, like I
move
said,
on.
it was just for the emergency vehicles as much as anything. Okay.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is a St. Paul's Board Committee resolution proposed by trustee Torino. It's creating another committee without any residents on it as far as I can see. It's accepting, yeah, I don't know if you want to explain it. Trustee Torino, it's yours.
Consistent with the manner in which the mayor has approached St. Paul's with regarding having resident input driving the needs of St. Paul's, the Mayor's Advisory Committee was designed for the purpose of getting input into what programs the recreation needs of the village are, as well as then what other activities are available or should be available to the residents. In order to determine what activities and to then expand upon the work that is being done by BCI, it is necessary to obtain professional engineering information so that you move forward with what activities can you physically and should you physically put into that building. This is an incremental process in which you obtain the services of residents. Those residents, as the resolution so states, will submit their resume or letter of interest to the village, and they will then provide to the Board of Trustees, since this is a board committee, their expertise without cost for the purpose of then outlining those opportunities that the village has to move forward with the St. Paul's building. The resolution lists specific trades, skills, and abilities that are necessary to continue that process. So that was the purpose of creating this board committee. It's the beginning, the first step on a journey.
Just one thing, just to clarify before, as far as, and I may not have made this clear before, in identifying the process from now until the plan and master plan for recreation and the St. Paul's plan, the surveying at this stage, I think we've heard quite a bit about. It includes the recreation component. The next will be the St. Paul's survey. And the purpose of that survey is to find out what the community sentiment is to St. Paul's, what people are most attached to, what parts of the building, what, we went out and said, do you want to say part or all of it? Where are people? Are they looking for a partial preservation or a full preservation? And when we get that type of sentiment data on St. Paul's and on the needs and what people can envision there, or would like to see there, the challenge, I think, really will be to marry those together. The attachment to the building, the needs, and what people want to see there. So that, and I do think we're going to continue with the survey and going forward if we want to be successful at the end. As far as Michelle and I actually had a meeting with the resident, I'm actually completely open, and I think it's important to engage residents. We, have already had one meeting, but it's premature really to get until we have a program to these other residents, this type of input. So I'm open to it. I just think this is premature, and I think we should probably do it cohesively with a committee, and that could be a full board committee, whether it's full board or mayors, I don't think is.
May I have a comment?
Sure.
Yeah, so actually, we were at that kickoff meeting at the casino. Many people came. Actually, we got some feedback from the people who were there. I think one thing was I kept hearing was, I don't really know the building. I don't have the information. I don't know which part is stable. And I don't know I can, I can't make a decision now because I just don't know enough. And another one was, there was a board about, which parts of the building are your favorite. There is a clock tower, there are other parts of the building. And, the question is, which part do you value the most? And, there were many people who were saying, I don't want to pick one because I want the whole building. So I think there are two things I think that are very important. One is for preservation options. I think we should provide residents with comprehensive information about the condition, stability, structural integrity, historical significance, function, safety, and, costs, and a lot of information of the options. Otherwise, I think simply asking what parts do you value the most, I think it can result in a skewed ranking that does not reflect the overall best interests of the building, the residents, and the community, simply because they just really have no idea, about the building. Like, I've never been in the building, so I don't know which part it's stable, which part has some structural damage. Without that, I think it's premature for people to choose which part do you value the most, or which part do you want to keep. Another thing is, when questions focus on ranking specific parts, I think they inadvertently guide respondents away from considering the building as a whole, potentially pitting elements against each other. This approach, I think, can lead to predetermined results and biased outcomes that may not accurately reflect people's true sentiments. For example, if someone says, I prefer a specific part, it doesn't necessarily mean that they just want to dismantle the entire structure. And in this case, this is a very contentious topic. I think it's very important to approach the survey with caution and to make sure the questions encourage a more comprehensive understanding of the subject. So actually, I think we have the opposite view. I think we should actually know more, and then people have a better knowledge and then decide, instead of, because when you are asking them which parts do you value the most, some part, which part is your favorite, which part do you like the most about the book? It doesn't mean that when you are asking that question, you're forcing the reader to choose one favorite part, and they could be loving the whole book. It doesn't mean they want to rip it apart and just keep 2 pages. They could be wanting the whole book. I think if you narrow down the questions like that, I think the results could be biased.
So, yeah, I mean, to that point, that's exactly why we have a professional company doing it, and not the Board of Trustees, not a group of residents. Having that independent company, I think, is hugely important. And that is exactly what they are skilled at doing, reading communities and asking the questions. And one thing, and I'm not sure if they're still on the line at this very late meeting, but one thing that it's their business to do this and to get it right, right? So they will do it. And there's another layer, I believe, where when it goes to the surveying company is another layer of taking any bias out of the questions on the survey. So the St. Paul survey tonight, I think everyone's good on the 5-page recreation survey, and that one's ready to go. We've had a lot of discussion. The next step, we're going to turn right around and start focusing on the St. Paul's, which is going to be shorter, but it's going to be very important. To your point, we have 2 women on the committee who are focused on the publicity part of it and the videos. And they actually have a video now that they're thinking of more of a historical part of someone who went to the building speaking about it. And I know Michelle saw it and liked it. The other thing is, we have a ton of information about the building. We have pictures about the inside of the building. We have a narrative by Lloyd Westerman, talking through the pictures and explaining what is known about the building. So to that point, I think we can work on, packaging that. If you feel like people don't, like, maybe those long meetings were too much, maybe we shorten it and do a little more. I think we just have to be careful, because once you start showing the pictures, it quickly turns into, you showed the best pictures, you showed the worst pictures. So however we do it, it's got to be done neutral, but we're certainly, receptive. And I don't think it's a bad idea to try and share more neutrally about the building.
Right, I think.
More information is always good, right? Transparency and more information, I think, genuinely. everybody wants to do that when it comes to the residents, because again, everybody has an opinion, everybody has a view, and they should all be respected. Simple as that. But when it comes to this board committee, the whole idea here of establishing a St. Paul's board committee, okay, is it's a simple and it's pretty much the obvious next step. Okay, so you have the great information and survey that you guys have done over the last bunch of months and are going to continue to do to get the information from the residents that we need as to what they want. We're also, that's the first leg. The second leg on a parallel track, okay, is moving the abatement forward, because we can't do anything. There's no point waiting 6 months and then we finally get the information and we're another 6 months behind the 8 ball. We're 30 years in. We don't want to be another 30 before we start this project. Please God, if we can make this happen. So the idea is that you move on parallel tracks and you move in all the balls forward. Again, you don't need them to go at 100 miles an hour, but you need them to move. Otherwise, it'll be next spring and we'll be like, okay, now let's spend another year and another year. What we're trying to do here is move all these balls forward thoughtfully with the right process. And the next and right process, once you get beyond the abatement and eventually the interior demolition of the building and do a full structural analysis, is to have all the other information ready to go from experts in this field. This is kind of my world. I'm in the construction world, and not the St. Paul's construction world, but the residential construction world. And you need to assemble professionals, whether they reside in town, a lot of them will, some won't, and get these amazing professionals who were willing to donate their time for $0, because God only knows we're spending enough money on consultants and this and that and the other, and it all adds up and it's all taxpayers' money. So the idea of this board is that the trustees and the mayor, okay, we get all these great resumes for these qualified people who are professionals in these fields, whether it's energy, structure, cosmetics, roofing, you name it, all across, whatever it takes to get this building, whatever we decide to do with the building, you need to do a full analysis of the building itself. And then you have great information ready to go, which is going to take months and months and months. It's probably going to take the guts of probably 6 to 9 months just to get the resumes, interview people, get them all on board and get this board established. It's probably going to take, just my guesstimate, the guts of the entire summer. So we have these professionals that are willing to give all their time, really dedicated to analyze the building and see what are the options. And again, we're not saying we're doing anything. We're saying we're getting all the information we need to analyze that building. For instance, perfect example, energy. We have to make this building the most energy efficient building in Nassau County, because in order to heat this building, cool this building, you look at geothermal, you look at solar, you look at every possible option, you look at grants that you can get from the federal government, the state, to make this building the most energy efficient building we can make it. So when please God, one day this building is up and running and is being used, that the operating costs in regards to energy especially are that takes 3 or 4 months just to do a full analysis of that, get all these professionals, get all their feedback, and irrespective of how many square foot we use, what we do with the building, part or all of the building, again, you have to get all this information. Our goal here, in my view, and this is just my opinion, is to create this board. It's going to take months to put it together and get all these resumes and interview all these great people who are willing to volunteer their time. So as we're moving the ball down along on the survey and the information side, which is going well, okay, and then we're moving the abatement and get into the interior demolition. By the time all that's done, which is probably realistically next spring, we have all this other information without, and be able to go to the public and say, okay, we've done a full analysis. Generally speaking, we have enough to give you at least numbers that they're either going to be willing to spend or they're not when it comes to a bond. Because otherwise you have to jump in to hiring engineers and architect and committing to spending millions and millions of dollars without even knowing if the public is going to go for this at all.
Let me just, I have to, do want to respond because I
That's just
know
my-
you're
that's just my
new to
personal
being
view.
on this side of it. And I can't emphasize too much the importance of having information on this project coming from paid professionals with a stamp, a business stamp on it, insurance, and not from volunteer residents, as well-meaning as they can be. This is just much too big a project for us to think we're going to, have a volunteer do a report on these different, I think volunteers play an important role of making sure we get the best experts, that we have a good process. But I think we can't end up with legal advice, but there's no law firm there, right? And we've had that. We can't have a financial plan going out to the public with the village name on it, which was never vetted by our treasurers, which has no financial firm on it. This is a huge undertaking, and we can't cut corners trying to save a few bucks by using volunteers. I think it's great for people to be involved. We have a lot of brilliant, talented people. I see it on this committee of 5 who are just making the process so much better. And I think we can do that with architecture, and we can do that with construction, bringing people's expertise to help us. But I don't think it's a substitute for having a firm giving an opinion that you can rely upon.
So for this opinion, let's say like architecture, like the first step, or just the very beginning part of the geothermal, would you have an estimate on how much that would be for an
No,
outlay?
it's going to take months and months of research on that building, in regards to what the mechanical systems, just for this building alone itself, not if you're doing anything with it. Again, we're not there yet, but Mary, I will disagree with you on that one. We'll respectfully disagree. Because if you look what you did, which, you established a mayor's committee, right? With a bunch of great people that give up all their time, including Bill Kivan and everybody else in the committee. You established a committee, right, of volunteers, right? Okay, they weren't paid professionals. And then you hired, and the board hired, Brandstetter, right? It's exactly the same thing, identical is what I'm saying. We get the volunteers, we do all the legwork, and then one day, please God, we will get the approval from the residents to hand it off to a major architecture and engineering firm, which is the next step after that. Otherwise, if you engage them now, we're talking millions of dollars for an architectural firm to do St. Paul's, millions of dollars to renovate all or part of the building. That's what we're talking. We're not talking hundreds of thousands. We're talking millions and millions of dollars for a major architecture and engineering firm. So, what I'm proposing here, and some of us on the board are proposing, that this is the next natural step, as opposed to waiting 4 or 5 months. We need the time to be able to engage and get the most amazing demo guys that we have that'll give us their honest opinion on the building and talk about the interior demo and talk about this and talk about that. It's no different than what you did setting up the mayor's committee, getting all kinds of legwork and great work done by volunteers who are professionals, and these are true professionals at their trade, okay? And then handing it off to the architect and the engineer. That's all we're saying. So we're not 8 months down the road, because we can't go ahead now and hire an architectural firm or an engineering firm the next 2 or 3 months, unless I'm missing something. So that's my opinion on that.
I honestly think, Mary, I look at it as it's a parallel committee that they're trying to put together to work with the committee that you put together. And they've been a great resource, the group that you put together. And, the meetings are very enjoyable and we learn a lot from each other. I think that the committee that Vinny, that Trustee Muldoon and Torino are trying to put together is going to be another great resource. And it's something that's going to guide us, and we're just going to all learn from it. And it's no skin off our nose. I mean, it's not going to cost us anything. We have some great residents in town that have some tremendous knowledge and talent, and they're just going to be a resource for us. And it's not going to impede anything that you want to do. And it's just going to help us have a better insight into what's going on in the building. And I think it's a wise decision.
Why would we not want to wait till the survey is done so we get a clear idea of where the residents want to go? Before, I know what you're saying about time-wise and everything, and I appreciate that. But why don't we just, see what the survey comes up with, what the people actually want, and then go into something like this?
That's a great question, Bruce. I'll tell you why. Because by the time this survey gets done, we analyze this information. I think, what are we talking, best case scenario, to really have a full analysis of this information? What month are we talking?
November.
I think we're gonna start knowing stuff by the early fall.
Yeah, I'm thinking
Getting-
September, October, right?
I'm hoping if we can all work
Yeah.
together and get the St. Paul's
Yeah.
survey out, that by September we'll have some data.
So,
But
that's,
actually, is Brandstetter still on or?
yeah.
I'd be shocked.
So either way,
Yes,
Bruce,
we're still
it's a
here.
great, it's a great,
Yeah, they are.
it's a great question.
All right, so who is it, either,
Can I just
Oh,
finish there quick? I just want to finish. It's a short point. All I'm trying to do here is we eventually have to create a board committee to make this all happen. I just want, like I do with everything else, not wait and wait and wait and wait, and then all of a sudden we're behind the 8 ball and it's another 6 months gone. All I'm saying is we establish this board committee, that's all we're doing. And then we start reaching out to people over the next 2 or 3 months, getting resumes, talking to people. The perfect guy that I'm talking about is Bob Cattell. Most of you guys know who Bob Cattell is, right? He was the CEO of, it was NatGrid, yes. And just one of the most, number one, amazing human beings that lives in this town, successful, brilliant, energy guys that's right at our fingertips that I've talked to, those dying to help and head up that part. He works with Stony Brook when it comes to green energy and everything else like that. These are the type of people I'm talking about that are just amazing people that can, for $0, give us amazing information that we would be paying, again, hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get this kind of information from anybody else. So I'm just trying to get the ball rolling. It's going to take months and months and months. So hopefully by September, when we get all the information, we have the board established with all these great professionals, and they can start doing a lot of this legwork for us and then coming back to us. And then hopefully one day, the next natural step is to hire that architectural firm and engineering firm. That's my view.
Quick
Thank you.
point, if I can interject, and this is going to be very brief. I, like you, Mayor, Mayor, thought that this was premature, but as you hear the importance of getting started on building a committee with this kind of talent and the breadth of talent, you're right, it's going to take 2 or 3 months at least to get it together. Number two, I also think it's important to have a board committee. We've had mayor's committees, and the mayor's committee can end at the end of a term. I don't know. Ms. Mayor, maybe you'll be here for another 2 years, starting in April of 25. But this committee should live on, and it will live on as an act of this board.
so, does Brandstetter want to chime in at all on any advice here, if they can be unmuted?
Regarding the board?
Yes, the idea of how much getting experts, architects, project development, demolition, contract, construction, project design. I don't think actually this was provided to you, the agenda. Geothermal, like trying to find experts in the community with all these different areas to assist us. I don't know if you've seen that or have
Well,
a-
yeah, I saw it as we came in today. As several board members were saying, it will take them several months to put that together. And you will need some of this information, obviously. I think personally, I don't see why it would be negative to have some preliminary information. I do ultimately agree with you, Mayor, though, that you will need information from an unbiased source ultimately to make a final decision.
So I think you are not coming through that clearly. I think you said not a bad idea, but you'll ultimately need a source, like a professional and not a volunteer to rely upon. So is this an
That's what
advisory?
That's what I've been saying, Mayor, the whole time. We do need a professional architecture engineering firm. That's what we're going to need to do this building. But in the meantime, let's do all the legwork that we can to get this great information, to then be able to hand it off to that firm, and then they take it from there based on what the residents want and their needs and what they'll agree to and the bond they'll be willing to accept in regards to, their taxes going up, because that's what this is really going to boil down to. So, that's
think
all. I like.
Making the title advisory committee might kind of clear it all up and make everyone more, I think that may be a Board of Trustees Advisory Committee. Because I think what I hear you saying, what makes me uncomfortable is the thought, and we've had committees before, and then it becomes contentious within the committee, and it hasn't always served us so well and gotten us to a successful end. But if it's an advisory committee and the role is clear that it's advising us, so we're not going to be looking for someone to give us professional opinions on these things. They're going to be advising us on the process, on finding the right professionals and walking through, making sure we're, getting all the best people on board, but not
Mayor,
actually giving us professional advice without a firm behind them.
It would appear to me, and I don't know where you're drawing your judgment from, that the purpose of this committee is to solicit information, to distill the information so that the residents have more information. Whether you put a name or a tag on the name of the committee does not change or alter the function of it. It is specifically to get information so that we, the board, and ultimately the residents, have an understanding of where we're going to. Delay is never a friend in the construction field. And having built a house, I know that I had to sit in a room and plan where the door swings were going to be before we ever put a spade in the ground. There's a lot of decisions and a lot of understanding that needs to be developed from a technical end, that it's a board committee. I don't care what name you put on it. It's still a board committee. It has people on it. They have an objective, and the objective is to move the development of what is the all or part of St. Paul's that is to be preserved. Right now, from the ballot that started in October, it says all or part. We don't know what all or part means, but at least if you start moving forward with a group of engineering, you then have an ability to understand heating. You have an understanding of what type of lighting, how do you do the runs? Where are you going to wind up having either elevators or not? All of these things can be thought out without any information. It is just a skeleton that is being developed, and the skin is being put on this skeleton until we then have the results of the survey, how we flesh it out. That's all it's supposed to be doing.
I have one quick question for trustee Torino and trustee Muldoon. I think the mayor has essentially said that if we throw the advisory word in there, which this is an advisory committee, all committees are advisory. So if we did that, I think this flies. No, the board.
It's a board committee.
Yeah, no, it's going to be the board's committee.
Set up and run by the board of trustees. That's
Right.
all.
It's be called the board's advisory committee to address St. Paul's mechanical infrastructure and planning.
Yeah, I do.
Does that make sense?
Just so it's clear, and I don't know if we're on the same page. It's not a way, and I think we're going to need to get legal advice, and we're going to get ethical advice, because we're talking about a huge issue, a huge project, potentially, and a lot of money. So we're going, in setting anything like this up, I think it's going to be important that two things. One is that anyone who's involved is not going to any way financially benefit from it. And the other issue that comes to mind is an issue we had with the last committee of a volunteer then taking the work back. Like, we need to have paperwork so that if someone does something, it becomes the village.
Mayor,
property.
may I
Yes.
think the Actually, I think the mayor's suggestion to call it the St. Paul's Board Advisory Committee is probably a good suggestion. Of course, the way it's worded now, it looks like it's a committee of the board or of board members. And I don't think you intended to be that. St. Paul's Board
No,
Committee.
no. It's the board's advisory committee.
That's what I'm saying. I think
But that's
it
the
may make sense to put the word
BOT,
advisory in
the
there.
Board of Trustees Advisory Committee.
Right.
That should be the.
Right. I
the
think it makes sense to
sequence.
do that, so it's not confused with being a committee of board members, which this may sound more like. I think putting the word advisory in.
Do I care? No.
No.
It's form over function. And if you want to paint it pink, it's fine.
Yeah.
All right. So
I think the other thing we have to be cautious of is that in putting this together, that we are, careful to fill a committee with people who are open-minded and
Mhm.
committed to our goal as a village, which is something I was careful with my five, and I've never heard them say that no one's trying to steer anything anyway. And I think we have to be careful. I think we all have read quite a bit about the history of the last way too large committee, right? And
Mhm.
how it's splintered.
Mhm.
And I don't want to go down that road again. So I guess the boards and commissions, I'm okay with there's no one on it at this point. People can submit their resumes, but in the meantime, I'll talk to village council and find out what we should do to make sure, what we can put in place to make sure it runs smoothly and for the benefit of the village.
Mhm.
do we need to vote?
So why don't we just do it this way? We'll take a vote on a resolution to form a St. Paul's Board of Trustees Advisory Committee, to which residents may begin submitting their resumes to the village clerk.
But I
I
think,
think this laundry list is a little too much. I think we don't want to have a committee. I think let's just start with, and we'll have more discussion about how big the committee should be, what restrictions should be on it, and how we'll keep it running smoothly.
Right now, we just want to establish the board, but it is very important that the people that we hire, 100% are open-minded or not.
Mhm.
We've all gone through that. But the most important thing is that we're getting professionals. So if I want to go with geothermal, as much as a resident might say, I'd love to volunteer, I'd love that. But, you're a carpenter, you know what I mean? Sorry, I need a geothermal guy. I need a professional in the demolition world. I need a professional in the plumbing world. We're looking for professionals in trade, you know what I mean? That are absolute, are going to help us with this process and are super knowledgeable. That's the type of experts we're looking for here in regards to helping us with each of these individual trades and parts of the building that needs to be assessed from a professional's perspective. That's
just for the record, and I'm sorry, folks, that we continue to discuss this, the beginning of the name of the committee, it's a teeny bit of an issue here, should be the Board of Trustees Advisory Committee on, to address, whatever. But the first three should be the Board Advisory Committee. Are you okay with that,
Yes.
sir?
Yeah, again, I
The
think.
important person, Kelly, are you all right with it?
All right, so do we have a motion to create a Board of Trustee Advisory Committee on St. Paul's? With an emphasis on professional experience.
Well, I think it's more than that, Mayor. I think it's, we have to be more specific instead of professional,
Open-minded.
because you've got professionals on on your current
Right.
advisory committee. So I think that we should use some of the language here, which includes mechanical infrastructure and planning. Listen, and which should include.
I think this is something the boards and commissions can have a meeting and talk more about this. We have a committee for filling it. So I don't know that we should be limiting what this is going to be when no one has.
The
Sure,
problem is
but it's constructive.
getting it started the right way first.
I think we need to put something out there too and be clear to people, because the people who are most qualified may have an interest in bidding on a tremendous project in the future. So I think,
There is no choice. You know, conflict of interest aside, Mayor, if you're on this committee and you bid on the thing, that's an absolute conflict of interest. So,
we have,
I mean,
we have to make it all clear, so we will,
Let's not go down this.
yeah, let's, I think. we're good.
Open-minded is the big thing. Okay,
This is a board committee. The board will then determine how it will appoint people to this committee.
That'll be a further discussion.
That, the board presumably will have a subcommittee of this board in order to determine how to fill this advisory committee, I would think.
We already have, we have the boards and commissions. It's me, Ed, Michelle and Judy. Oh, no, Bruce and Judy. Yeah, so we'll discuss it.
All right, so
So why don't we just do a motion?
Do
We
we
have a
language?
motion to create a Board of Trustees Advisory Committee on St. Paul's.
on St. Paul's, right.
yes.
Infrastructure and planning.
And I think it's not unfair, it's too early to include the bullet points here that some or all of these expertise.
Yeah,
Correct.
I,
Some or all of these will be part of the committee.
I think I think we don't want to overly define it because I'd rather not have multiple board committees on St. Paul's. So why don't we start by creating this and discuss it
There are
further?
not, no, this is for the purpose of defining what are the qualifications that the board is looking for. This has nothing to do with
And the subject matter, Bruce, correct? Subject matter.
subject matter.
So it does have to have, in my opinion, wording indicating exactly what subject matter, even in a broad sense, this BOT advisory committee is going to do.
But the board is going to control this. There's going to
Yep.
be presumably a subgroup of members of this board
That's right.
Right.
who are going to control this process.
Right.
So I don't know that you need to specify all
Yeah.
these things.
I
Because
disagree.
that, all right.
Yeah, why don't we do that, Edit? Why don't we just create it? And we can further discuss it. We can note that the village clerk is accepting resumes from these areas, if that's what you'd like to get started on.
I would
But
absolutely like.
I do think in the future,
areas-
there may come a time when we realize as we're going forward, we just want to have one committee. And, we need the building and we need something else, and this shouldn't be so limited, so. Well, let's just
Yeah.
not limit, let's just say we're. We could and have it so,
But
why don't we just keep it simple? Is
I
there a
believe-
motion to create a Board of Trustees Advisory Committee on St. Paul's? Why don't we create it?
on
I
St.
think
Paul's
we need to have an emphasis.
to address mechanical infrastructure and planning issues.
Or, it sounds like we're asking volunteers to do this specialty and work, this.
It's an advisory
Advisory
committee. It's already in the
No,
name.
no more
Right.
than Mayor Cosmo's committee, expected to have contracts on the building with regard to the specialties that the 38 into 7 subcommittees handled. They didn't expect to do the work. They expected to advise us what we need to think about in its most basic and important form. So.
we have a committee now, though. That's what I'm so,
That's
perplexed.
different.
it
Yeah,
is- it
that's
is.
why
We're
we
not
need to
looking at any of
emphasize
this.
on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
subjects.
Okay, is there a motion?
Yes.
Thank
What are
you.
the areas that were specified? Did
I
you get
think-
those, Kelly?
Correct. And they will include
The list.
disciplines, may include disciplines, and then add the bullet points.
All
May
of
include-
those?
Yes. Correct. May include. Don't have to.
All right,
So moved.
Thank you. Do you want to call? for
all
the
in
vote?
favor? I vote no, okay. So we have, all opposed, 2, so 5 and 2, or 6 and 2.
6-2. No, Tate.
Okay. All right,
Oh, you spoke the motion. I made the motion.
all right, so moving on to item number 3, another resolution proposed by trustee Torino. If you want to read your resolution.
With regard to that resolution, the only part of that resolution that I am seeking to move forward is the first sentence, which states BCI shall not send out any survey correspondence or communication to the residents without the express approval by resolution of the board.
And that's all you.
That's correct.
That's what I just said,
Okay.
yes.
All right, so is there a motion for that resolution, just the first sentence?
So moved.
All in favor? Unanimously passed. All right, we have another resolution here for the end year audit. The village shall retain PFK O'Connor Davies as outside auditor for the year ending 24-25 official village year audit pursuant to the terms of engagement letter March 20th, 2024. Village will undertake a full-scale competitive process for the selection of an outside independent auditor for the year-end audit for the official year commencing June 1st, 2025. Is there a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
And all opposed? All right, so that's 7-4, 1 against. Right, and a similar resolution number 5 for the deferred compensation plan audit, the village shall retain PFK O'Connor Davies as outside auditor for the 2024 calendar year. Deferred compensation plan audit pursuant to the terms of the engagement letter dated February 8th, 2024. Village will undertake a full-scale competitive process for the selection of an outside independent auditor for the deferred compensation plan audit for the calendar year 2025. Is there a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye. All
Opposed?
Okay, so 7 in favor, 1 opposed. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'd like to take a couple things off first.
Okay.
What?
I want to say that item number 6 on the agenda wasn't spoken about.
No, it was not. I was just going to remind the mayor myself.
Oh, right.
6, not 16, 6.
Okay.
Where's?
So number 6, I don't know if that was a proposed resolution by trustee Torino, I believe, which we got advice of counsel on and is now on the consent calendar. If, I don't know if, Mr. Fishberg wants to explain that, or if you wanted to speak on it?
I don't see it as item 6.
Oh, it was updated.
It got moved down with the, yes,
Correct.
So is there a motion to remove any items from the consent calendar?
yes.
Which ones?
Number 6 and
That's the 6.
6 and F.
In F.
F is on the consent calendar. 6 is an outlier that got moved down.
Right.
All right, so
On the
we
consent.
will remove from the consent calendar number 3, item F, environmental legal matters. And number 6, resolution on retaining counsel. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar without number 3, item F, and number 6?
So moved.
All in favor? All right, so the consent calendar minus those 2 items passes unanimously. And trustee Torino, did you want to discuss F? Environmental legal matters, retention?
No, I want to start off with 6.
Okay.
Part of the reason for that resolution, which was initially on new business but got moved down to the consent calendar, was the process by which the village retains counsel was, at least in my judgment, needing further work. Under the New York State Law 22 and NYC 1215, each attorney who does work for a client has to have what's called an engagement letter. The provisions of that engagement letter is what I have incorporated in item number 6. And the reason why item number 6 is as important to me as it should be is because we are paying an awful lot of money for legal counsel. Not enough, of course, for Mr. Fishberg, but we'll defer to that. So at which point, there has been retaining of counsel without what I consider to be a proper engagement letter, nor has there been proper supervision of those counsel, nor has the board been provided with the documentation that we are needed to consider for one purpose. Now we go into item.
Can
F.
I,
What?
Trustee Trino?
Sure.
I don't know of the appropriateness of going into the explanation when the item has been removed. If it's necessary to state why you want to remove it, that's fine, but I'm sure that.
I want to remove it so that in order that we, as a board and the residents understand we are doing our job.
But
See, putting things on the consent calendar means that nobody knows what's happening. It's all happening in a telephone booth in the dark.
But I appreciate that. But it seems to me that if it's removed, at some other time, it may arrive back on a calendar. And at
It
that
gets
point,
voted on now. That's what happened. It gets removed off the
Oh,
consent
oh, oh,
calendar, then you
okay.
discuss it, then you vote on it.
got it. Pardon me.
I think trustee Torino just wants to make a statement on this.
Okay,
Am I right?
that's fine.
Yeah,
You can make your statement.
I pretty much did.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
So if you want to vote on item number 6, I so move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Did you want to make a statement on F, environmental, legal, retention to council?
Yes, now that we have come round full circle as to what is required and what the board has established as a requirement, in our board packages was the letter of engagement by Hawkins and the letter of engagement by Civ Paget. For those of us that have read it and compared it, they are so dissimilar as not to be compliant with what this board has now voted to agree. With regard to the bills for Civ Paget, we spent over $50,000 on Save the Casino.
That's not the, I don't think you meant to say it that way.
What is it?
Say, or to oppose.
Say- say no to the
We're not
casino.
Saving, yeah.
Okay? I don't, at least personally, I have not seen any documentation for what we paid $50,000 for. I know that Mr. Fishberg's firm has a number of individuals who have and do the same thing, but are not billed at $900 an hour. So to the extent that we, by this, by item F, are wanting to renew the agreement for Civ Paget, I find that to be deficient. On this piece of paper, I can't approve renewing their contract to do what they're doing. We don't even know what projects they're on. We don't know how much it's going to cost us in the future. We have not, at least I have not seen any documentation with regard to saying no to the casino. So
We can defer that to the next meeting and get a letter from them.
Yes, but also, I do understand Bruce's concern. Incredibly enough, the $900 per hour fee of the lead partner was reduced by 25% as he charges most of his clients $1,200. this is one of the preeminent firms in the environmental area, in the tri-state area. The firm has done work for the village for how many years, Ralph? And they have handled matters far and wide, including the PFAS litigation, the settlement that we are going to be potentially entering into the global settlement. So I have been impressed by their work. Unfortunately, it is an expensive specialty. So I would vote to keep them if there is something that we can do to remove it from the calendar or postpone, and then we can get Mr. Torino and anyone else who would like additional
Process
information.
is to defer
Sure.
the agenda item.
Good.
Yeah,
Just,
for no other reason, but to get the paperwork, they're a very impressive
Yes, they are.
firm.
They
And
are.
I think there's a great value to the village of having options on different areas of specialty to
Amen.
represent
Should
our
that
village.
I
be,
agree that they are preeminent.
should there be like
But
an?
it doesn't necessarily we should pay a premium for those things that do not require their expertise.
I
Should
think,
there-
I think, like, I'm paying the bills now, so I'm looking at this stuff every week. I'm getting the bills and I'm going through lawyers' bills like no offense, Gary. Going through the lawyers' bills and reading what they're charging us for. And it's amazing and it's very detailed. And I think what has to happen, because I know I was alarmed by getting some of the bills and looking at what we were paying that for. And I knew nothing about some of the stuff that we were paying for as a trustee. And I found that alarming. And I think that what's very important is when we have special big bills and we're dealing with special law firms, that everyone on the board knows what's going on. And we need to operate as a team. And we need to protect each other, meaning the village, and we need to know what's going on as a group.
with all fairness to trustee Finneran, I believe when we had our meetings with Jack Libbard, who was the counsel for the town of Hempstead, as well as Claven, that was the suggestion of them, I believe, to enter into it. and
It's just a
that's how-
long-standing relationship
right.
with our village.
Right, right.
It seems like it's a paperwork issue, and I don't see that there's any reason we can't defer it to the next meeting.
Yeah, it seems very broad to me. Is it a common practice to have an engagement letter to just specify?
Required by law.
You know, Mr. Fishberg, do you want to comment on that at all? On the with municipalities?
Well, their engagement letter is a little sparse. And I guess it may be appropriate to have them put a little more detail into their letter as to what is expected of them or what the village is seeking from them in terms of the services they're providing. They really don't go into that in that engagement letter.
We're not using them regularly, which
Yeah.
could be part of it. They are there. That's one of the firms that we have on when environmental issues come up, who we can go to because we have this retainer. So that can be specified in the letter that it is for consultation on these different environmental
They
matters
should
that
just
result.
follow 1215 as to what they're required to give us. That's all. I
Yeah,
have.
an engagement letter is more than just fees. It has a lot of other information in it as well. That's really
That was that's what I
commonly
put in my
seen.
motion.
So.
All right, so I don't think this is if
I just-
Mr. Swazi can communicate to them.
Yeah,
what needs to be added.
I'll talk to Mr. Udelson, but the Genesco settlement was settled just shortly before or after I arrived here. And all the environmental issues that I brought to Mr. Udelson involved the dioxane issues,
PFAS.
the water tank. We had serious issues. We had a problem with the DEC and our mulch field. when I first took over DPW, which was, we were getting fined for, and Covanta. So I would call on him. I think going forward, besides the proper documentation or the expanded documentation that is being requested, I think when environmental issue comes up, we should make the determination. I'll seek Mr. Fishberg's help. Does require the experience of this niche firm, or is it something that falls more ordinarily into the expert at Cullen Dyckman? Because these environmental issues can be quite intense with regulatory agencies. In other words, it's just clarifications on a secret document. So I will use greater discretion, and I will request or maybe Ms. Fishberg, you could call Ms. Udelson.
Well, I don't know that you ask Mr. Fishberg. If he's, I think we'll talk to the legal committee because obviously
Okay.
there's a little, for obvious reasons.
Conflict of interest.
Yes.
But I think what
So-
what trustee Torino was talking about, besides simply setting forth rates, an engagement letter typically has a lot of other information
meat.
in it.
Yes.
Right, and I guess we will work on how that can be, considering how we've been using them in the past, and they have been actually very valuable, and environmental issues are serious
Outstanding.
issues, and we do not, one thing that, and I sent this to Gary Fishberg and hope, and think you're recommending it as drafted. One thing I think is very important is that the village is equipped to get legal advice when we need to, if something comes up on an environmental matter, that we're not waiting for, for just,
Or to pick a new firm. Yeah.
right, or looking for counsel.
I think this is very clear to me. We need an engagement letter. And if any work falls outside the scope of the engagement letter, we need a board approval. Is that clear?
What it says. I'd also like to suspend the board rules because I understand that the
Making a motion for that item?
yes,
Put that to bed, Jim.
All right, all in favor,
Aye.
Okay, that's deferred to the next meeting.
now I'd also, with regard to, I believe that the agreement for Carissa was pending and not pending. I'd like to suspend the board rules, and I've already spoken to council with regard to her agreement.
I'm sorry, no one had done the agreement. It'll be on the next agenda. For some reason, there was no attachment and,
It was done. I did,
and
it.
you did it today?
Yeah. Because all I had
I'm
to,
not going to, at a 10:40 PM in a board meeting, I don't think it's appropriate to drop a new agreement, so.
it's the same agreement she was operating on for the last year. You put a new date on it.
Did you
and
ever
put-
give it? Because I had asked Judy was gonna try to get this agreement too. So I never asked.
Yeah,
Okay.
I asked for it. I sent it to
Done.
council. The only change from last year to this year
Can you raise?
is she gets the raise that everybody said. Otherwise, we
right.
hold her up for money.
We use Carissa all the time and she's excellent. And
It really is.
I don't know what the holdup is. Gary has basically said the contract is going to be the same except for the raise we're giving her and let's just move on and get it done.
Where's the
And-
contract? Was it on my desk today?
Yeah.
You brought it here today? This is so inappropriate.
I
It
wasn't even
was
aware of
actually on
any.
the agenda of the
There was no attachment on the agenda was the issue. So,
If I could make a suggestion, if we defer this to the next meeting, will Carissa, her raise be retroactive to whenever?
Sure.
I
Hey.
think we should do that.
Yeah.
It-
I don't-
it- Yeah,
Just trying to move it forward. All right.
it's fine.
Get asked into this village.
Yeah.
Yep, no,
Yes,
she does
nobody's-
a great job.
listen,
Nobody's
folks,
arguing
just
that.
move a little sooner. Don't wait till the 10:40.
Okay, yeah.
Suspending the rules. We can move on. We'll defer it.
So are
Perfect.
are we okay with that?
Yes.
And then we can guarantee that she'll be paid nunc pro tunc now
Okay.
for then. Is that right?
It's the proper
Correct.
term.
Thank you.
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
Now we have.
Well, we're going to withdraw that because.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
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 So moved. Aye.
Do we have any citizen comments on non-agenda items? Anyone in the room? I don't see anyone. Anyone on Zoom with a citizen comment on a non-agenda item?
Wow.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
So moves.
Favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you for coming, everybody. Thank you.